Let's test this out. All right. I think we're live. Hello, hello. Yes, we are. There we go. There we go. Happy Thursday. Let me get this studio set up real quick. Go ahead, drop any. Start sitting in the chat if you got any. I'm gonna finish setting the last of this up real quick. But welcome, welcome. Hope everybody had a good week 7 of football. A lot of big scoring for some players, big weeks for some bad weeks for others. And we got a lot of teams on bye this week. Got a lot of teams on bye this week. So let me know in the chat who you think is going to win this game, Vikings or Chargers. We got many teams on bye, as many people probably maybe not as many decisions as they would like this week on who to play, who to not play. But we can still go over some things from a high level. What's up, Andrew? How are you? Every week is a bad week. Ready for some fun questions? Let's go. There's no bad week when there's football. The only bad weeks is when football season is over. When football season is over, those are the only bad weeks. But for sure, drop them in the chat. Let's get some celebrations going off for everybody. Hopefully week 8 will be a great week for everybody. We got a lot of teams on byes. Tonight we got the Vikings taking on the Chargers, which should be an interesting game. We got hopefully got some good scoring going on. Everybody, wants the week to kick off fun, right? We want a fun game rather than a boring game to kick off the week. So hopefully we can get some scoring. Both teams have had good defenses at times and weak defenses at others. So we'll see who comes to show up. The Vikings defense was looking pretty good and then just gets torched by Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith last week. So we'll see if the Chargers can pick them apart. Justin Herbert and team could get some scoring going. And we'll see what the Vikings can do on their end. All right, Andrew goes. So you're starting Aaron Jones in the flex. Only other options are Hollywood Brown and Bourne. I'm thinking about playing some defense. Opponent has Daniels out, and at QB, no backup. You're thinking about dropping one of those receivers for Rodgers to QB block your opponent. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. So if you pick up Rodgers, I mean, does that leave them with an even worse, like where Rodgers is the clear cut quarterback in this situation? I would assume, I was really liking what Kendrick Bourne was doing for that, short period of time. But that seemed to cool off a little bit. Let's pick up the schedule for them just to double check. For some reason, I think it was a tough defense. Okay, they're playing the Texans, who's, not the easiest defense there, and you don't really expect the Texans to score all that much, so I wouldn't think they're a threat as much. And then the Chiefs, on that one, you're basically waiting for a Hail Mary, right? And the Commanders, they're not as big of a threat right now without Jaden Daniels. I don't know how much usage Aaron Jones is going to get. So I don't even know how safe that floor is. Uh, but in terms of let me see. Other options are Mariota, Tour, Rattler, Dalton for him. Um, yeah, so I don't know if let me see. What would I think? Let me pull up these scores. So you said Cole, how are you? Get to you in 1 minute. Um, you got he's got Mariota other than Rodgers, right? So Rodgers playing Green Bay, and that's at home. So that's a plus matchup. Mariota is playing against um who's Washington playing? The Chiefs. So they can be coming from behind on that one. Yeah, if you don't foresee yourself ever playing Hollywood or Born Again, um, I think you could do that. I would say Mariota's not the worst choice for him in that situation. Uh so if you still have I forgot how deep you are at wide receiver, right? If you still have a way for those wide receivers to have value, then maybe not, right? But if you don't foresee yourself playing those guys, I totally understand blocking players, right? Like I've done that before too, in similar but different situations, right? Like if I'm good at running back and I know my opponent has running backs on buy or whatever, and there's somebody on the waiver to pick them up, right? But that can play as a double shot in that case, where it's like you not only are blocking your opponent, but you're picking up potential value down the line, right? In your case, I don't know. I forgot who your um, quarterback is, but you know, uh, if you're going to end up dropping them again later, just think about how deep your league is for if Hollywood and Bourne are going to be future value for you or not, Andrew. And if they are going to be future value, like somebody that you might play, then you might be able to you know move off that. But I think for me, if I were choosing, um, I think it's not a bad choice between Rodgers versus like you're not downgrading that much, I don't think, right? But if it was like down to Spencer Rattler, right, or even Tua with how they're playing now, uh, possibly, right? So maybe you might have to take both in order for that logic to work, um, or just leave it. Um, and who knows? I don't know if any of those other guys might even have better option in the flex this week. I'm not sure how much they're going to work Aaron Jones in that quickly, but that would be my thought. Let me know if that helped or not. Andrew, much appreciated on the questions. Let me know if anything else. So Cole, how are you today, sir? Trade. I would assume Nico Collins and Brees Hall for Sutton and Jalen Warren. Ooh, this is pretty close. This is pretty close. So I think for me, it's going to come down to rest of season schedule of the positions that matter the most to me, right? So I don't know for you if the running back like position matters more so than the wide receiver in this. And you know what I mean by that is, do you have more depth at the wide receiver or the running back position, right? And then the thought process that I'm having on this is, okay, rest of season schedule. What if I'm going to, let's say, need the wide receiver more, right? Who has the better rest of season schedule between Nico Collins and Sutton, right? Because on the surface level, I think Collins is probably the most talented player in this. Like, there's probably potentially more talent on that side, but where the game scripts are right now, where the offenses are that's not necessarily true. So then if it becomes a wash to me at like what offense or which person do I think is going to be better, right? Then I'm looking at rest of season schedule, right? And so if I'm looking at this valuation, this trade for Breece Hall versus Jalen Warren, Breece Hall, if he stays on this offense, there's obviously rumors of him getting traded, but let's just say he stays on this offense, right? Jalen Warren's probably going to have more potential for touchdowns and everything through the rest of the season, but who knows on the strength of schedule. And then on the Texans versus Denver thing, the Denver offense looks like it's going to be more reliable, right, for rest of season than Houston. So just without looking at anything, I have a slight edge towards the Sutton and Jalen Warren side. But let's look at the rest of season schedules to make this final valuation. And then the last thing to take in mind is the buys, right? So for example, like Jalen Warren, I know has done his buy, Nico Collins, right? But I don't think Breece or Sutton has. So like if you were needing like one of these positions more than the other, then you also have to realize that you might be taking on a buy, or if that's giving you a benefit, right? So these are all like ways to analyze and add up to the total value of how the trade is going to value for yourself, right? Like if you are getting rid of a player that was going to have a buy and then you're now gaining a player, that's a +1 in the game availability, right? If somebody is on an offense that's going to score twice as many touchdowns as another offense, that's a better touchdown equity. If they both had the same amount of carries, right? So you're comparing all these things versus each other for what your specific team needs are, right? And so the last variable we can kind of look at is rest of season schedule. And the Texans, they have some other teams that can kind of score some points. The Raiders, is probably the only team that's not gonna. My Raiders or the Titans might not be as score heavy, right? So Collins has a decent schedule. Of course, you could look on a deeper level of team by team, right? But we're just doing this on a high level right now. So he has a decent rest of schedule. Breece Hall, how does that look? Jets schedule, right? So Breece Hall, he's got the Bengals. He has a tough matchup against the Browns, tough matchup against the Patriots. Ravens might be getting better. Falcons might be getting better. He has Patriots twice. So, he has some pretty tough run defenses, right? So if I was needing the running back in this trade, this notes that Breece Hall does have a decently difficult schedule, plus his offense is in shambles, right? So he has like probably the hardest expected output, for lack of better words, right? Just based off of what offense he's on, which is not a great offense, plus the teams he's playing are like the Patriots, the Browns, who all have pretty good run defenses. So that's like an asterisk for me, right? Breece Hall, that he has not so good of a schedule. Courtland Sutton, when we look at this, he's got a great matchup. Cowboys this week, Texans, decent defense, Raiders, not too much, Chiefs, high scoring, Broncos versus Commanders. Hopefully Daniels is back by then. Raiders again, Packers, their defense is good but better against the run. Jaguars, their defense kind of look phony. Chiefs and Chargers. So Sutton's, similar to Collins, right? Nothing too scary. Some teams that can score. So like that's kind of like a wash to me for schedules of Sutton versus Collins. So then it just comes down to who do you believe is, the better player and offense. And right now the Denver team just looks to have like a better offense than the Houston team. So that's how I would give the edge to Sutton there. Slightly, right? And then Steelers schedule, right? So we said Collins and Sutton have roughly the same amount on their schedule, but Sutton's in a better offense. Breece Hall's not in a good offense. And his schedule is kind of tough, right? Jalen Warren, he's got Packers this week, so slightly tough. Colts, it's all right. Chargers, Bengals, pretty easy. Bears, Bills, nothing too crazy. Dolphins, Ravens, the Lions, and the Browns. So he has, a decently tough schedule, probably a little easier than Breece, but not too much, right? So the schedules are roughly about the same. So then for me, it's just going to come down to who do I think has the better path to rest of season schedule. And so when I compared Sutton to Collins, I think Collins has a higher ceiling, right? So if you're just shooting for the moon because you were completely out of it, he has the higher ceiling, right? Because we've seen him do that before. But just this year, that's not what the offense has showed. It has not showed touchdown equity, right? And then him within that offense as well, he has not shown ownership of that offense equity fully, completely yet. It's kind of like been a little over the place. Breece Hall's been getting some numbers here and there, but recently not so much. His offense looks completely terrible, right? So those two are on the worser two offenses, right? For me, for how many touchdowns for the rest of the year you can expect from both of those teams versus the other teams and how much offense you're going to get out of the other teams. So after doing that analysis, I think there's a slight edge for me on the Sutton and Warren side. The only reason I would take the Collins and Breece side is if I absolutely needed just like complete upside, right? Like, I'm just praying because both of those guys have finished in top 5 of their position. So that's what you're hoping for if you're taking the Collins and Breece side, for them to figure things out. But their offenses, to me, don't have the game scripts, right? It doesn't have the personnel, whatever you want to call it, the depth of what they would need to reliably put that out. So I hope that makes sense, Cole. Let me know if that helped or not. Drop a like if you can, much appreciated. All right, Ryan, how are you? Let me get this spam out this chat, put this user in a timeout. All right, so we got, you should never play a TH player in the flex, right? That's Thursday, right? Thursday, no, if you can avoid it, you want to take them out of your flex and put them into either your running back or, whatever other position, so that in case injuries happen in the rest of the week, you have that flexibility. So typically the rule of thumb is your latest window players, you try to put in the flex if possible, like your Sunday afternoon or your Monday player, right? And then put the rest in the other positions. I hope that makes sense, Ryan, but great question. Drop a like if you can. Let me know if there's anything else. All right, Andrew, how are we starting? McLaurin. Is McLaurin playing? Wow. And Pierce this week. Pierce, I think, is a decent gamble. He's hit. He's a downfield player, kind of like Jameson Williams, but he gets a little more consistent usage, so he's not bad. McLaurin, I didn't know was playing. That you lost Hills and Neighbors early on, and you have Watson and Godwin on IR. Jeez, bro, this sucks. So if you're saying if I do block, pick up Rodgers and Mariota, yeah. So let's go back to your blocking question, right? So let's look at it from a tier perspective, right? Where, in a good tier, you would see in this season, Patrick Mahomes as top tier, and you could throw Drake May, Dak Prescott, right? Or whatever. And let's say you have your top 5 who there might be some order to them, but you're good playing all those guys, right? But then you might get to some other names like a Bo Nix or, a Jackson Dart, Caleb Williams, where like on the season, maybe they're top 10 or 12 at the quarterback position, right? But that they're a tier lower and not as comfortable, right? And in those names that you listed out, right, where I would see Aaron Rodgers kind of falling in a potential possible outcomes in that offense, because Green Bay is better at blocking the run than the pass. Rodgers can score a little bit, right? And then Mariota having a history of running a bit, he can also put up, some type of numbers, right? But what has Tua done this year? Nothing like consistent, right? And then you look at Spencer Rattler, like those names with what they've been doing this season are a little, especially two against the Falcons, where the Falcons defense has been pretty solid, right? Those names are like a tier below, right? So if I were playing against you and I had the options of all those guys, Aaron Rodgers and Mariota and Tua, my decision making would be between Aaron Rodgers and Mariota. So that's why I'm saying it's like, if you take one of those away, well, I still have this other option. So if I were to fire sell my team to try to win this week, like you were saying, and I'm like, well, whatever, if I lose value on Kendrick Bourne, I don't need him, whatever it is, I need to win this week and I had to block, I would put myself in that blocking position of like the worst possible outcomes, quote unquote, from my opponent. I hope that kind of makes sense, Andrew. But let me know if you have any other thoughts or if that does not help. Much appreciated. So Dylan, Thursday question. Okay. Full PPR. Do I confidently start Quentin Johnston tonight or play Josh Downs, Bill Krosky-Merritt, Jalen Noel, or Algier? So for me, this is going to come down to, without this position, are you expected to win? Are you expected to lose, right? And so I think out of all those names that you kind of listed there, I think Bill Krosky, I don't know if Downs, how healthy he is. I haven't been checking on his what's it called, status of his health this week, but I think Quentin Johnston is a safe flex play. However, he can also happen what happened last week with 2 catches but then not find the end zone. So some of these other guys might have a little safer of a floor, right? So I'm not saying Bill Krosky has a safe floor because he only had 34 yards last week, but that's the only reason I would consider like Tyler Algier or something like that, or Bill Krosky, is if I just wanted to get, I just needed 5 points from this position, and I'm gonna win. But I think with where the offense is at in the Chargers, they are gonna need to throw. So with where Krosky-Merritt has turned out, these past couple of games, I don't think he's much safer. I haven't looked at Algier versus that position. I think that's kind of a very deep reach. I know he can put up some fantasy points, but that's pretty risky. I think Algier versus Quentin Johnston, right? Jalen Noel, I would not play or trust anybody from them, the the Texans over Quentin Johnston, right? He's in the better situation, Quentin Johnston. Josh Downs is an interesting play, but again, I don't know the status of his health right now, so let me just pull that up. Yeah, so he's still carrying a questionable tag right now. Okay, he practiced fully, so he's probably going to play, and it'll be at the Titans. And the Titans, it's either it's going to have to be a quick hit. It might be running. So yeah, for me, it's between Bill Krosky and Quentin. And I think with how Bill Krosky's been playing, I'm okay playing Quentin Johnston in this scenario and just rolling with the slight risk, because there's slight risk attached with Bill Krosky anyways, right? He hasn't necessarily been a safe floor. So yeah, I think you're okay playing Quentin Johnston there, and just hoping he's the one that hits, because the other guys, none of them are super safe right now with their matchups and at this point in time. I hope that makes sense, Dylan. Let me know if that helped or did not help. Drop a like if you can. Much appreciated. Would I rather have Odunze or Brian Thomas Jr. rest of seasons? Ooh, that's a great question, Parayaka. Hope you are doing well. So I think a couple things come to mind for this trade, and I've had both of them at one point. I have Odunze right now, had BTJ before. So I can say that they're both talented, right, receivers. And I think the main first thing that comes to mind here is first rest of season schedule, right? How much opportunity are they going to have? And then both of them have I don't know if competition is the right word, but we both wanted them to be target monsters in their offenses, and both of them have had that same kind of, I think for different reasons, right? But lack of usage, right? Going down over time, where for the case for BTJ, he has what's his name? Travis Hunter starting. They're saying that they're going to feed him more and more, right? And it just seems like his connection with Trevor Lawrence isn't something that's natural, right? When you look back at last season and what Brian Thomas Jr. did, a lot of that came with Mac Jones, not Trevor Lawrence, right? And so I kind of am a little hesitant on that connection. The other thing to note with Brian Thomas Jr., we don't know the severity level of the injury. Everybody is writing it off as something that he'll shake off and bounce back from, which is true too. But, in a rest of season conversation, in my head, that still plays, 1% or 5% value in the back of my head when I make this decision. Like, is this guy gonna end up playing all season with an injury? And is that something that's I have to be checking on every week, right? That he's gonna be carrying a questionable tag into the weekend, or is it gonna affect his game, right? Some players it doesn't, some players it does, but this is something I'd consider, right? And Odunze, I think right now is on his downward slope in terms of perceived value from the community, right? Without looking at the schedule, I'm leaning Odunze, and here's my logic, and I'll look at the schedules in a sec, right? Even though his usage dipped in these past couple games, there was a little bit, I feel like, of game script and an environment kind of involved with that, where the run game was tearing it up these past couple games, and they were leading the games both times, right? For these past two where Odunze's dropped. He had a touchdown. He did have a touchdown called back. And he looks like, they do want to use him as the what's it called? The number one in the offense. And it just kind of felt like the game flow fit more for the run game, and the run game wasn't even challenged, right? They just were able to continue running. So why would you change that, right? In the Jaguars, it seems like they've been trying to get Brian Thomas as the number one, but it just hasn't been working. So it kind of feels like the target share, even though it's down for Odunze right now, might kind of just be, like the ebb and flow, right? Like the ups and downs. Whereas BTJ's kind of always had the targets here. He just hasn't lived up to what that should equate to in fantasy value. So basically where I'm getting with that, it's like, there has been some ebb and flow reduction with Odunze. Should we be worried about that? That's the main question. And to answer that question, I think we look at the rest of season schedule to say, like, do we envision more games like how they had against the Saints where they don't need to throw and they're only throwing the ball 25 times? Or are they going to be playing more competitive games where they're going to need to throw, right? So they're coming against the Ravens, the Bengals, who are kind of new and reformed, the Giants, who are kind of decent, the Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, the Browns, Packers again, 49ers, then the Lions. So it's like all these teams you can envision scoring more, right, than the Saints did, or the Commanders without Jaden Daniels for half the game, right? So I kind of or no, Jaden Daniels played that game. Sorry, he got out the last game, but they still ran very well against them that game, I believe, right? DeAndre Swift 108 yards, 7.7 yards a carry. Yeah. So they just couldn't stop the run. So that situation is still possible for the Bears. Don't get me wrong, but with who they got left, they have a decent schedule. When you look at the Jaguars, they're playing next the Raiders, the Texans, okay, the Chargers, okay, the Cardinals, the Titans, okay, the Colts, the Jets, okay, the Broncos, Colts again. So this schedule to me, I can see a little bit more game scripts, right? The Titans, the Raiders, the Texans, where these games they might be leading and or being able to control the game with defense. And so maybe the Jaguars don't need to pass it as much. And if they're also going to be spreading out the volume, and even more so with Travis Hunter, plus the injury designation, it's hard for me to say Brian Thomas Jr. because to me, he's already kind of at the quote unquote upside potential of targets. It's just he has to start catching these, right? Versus for me, for Caleb and the Rome connection, right? It's like the targets are a little down right now, so there's still some upside left of can those targets go back up. So for me, I think I would rather have Odunze rest of season. It is close. I think the tipping point for me is I personally don't know how injured BTJ is, and with the slight edge of the schedule for Odunze, for me, I would rather take my L of saying I made this trade, right? But these were my decisions rather than having to live, for me, just me personally, having to live thinking, well, is BTJ injured? Is he not injured? Are they going to scheme him? Is he going to get these targets in these games against the Jets, right? Against the Titans, against the Broncos? Like, am I going to have to, sauce Cortland Sutton, game scripts? There's just a little more uncertainty for me there. So I would take that shot. I hope that makes sense, Periaco. Let me know if it doesn't. Drop a like if it can, if it helps. All right. Cole says it's a trade you're considering, especially if Collins is hurt. Yeah, Collins has a concussion, right? So if you have Nico Collins, and I think record is a big thing too, right? I heard a good rule of thumb. I forgot if it was yesterday or today, where it's like, if there's 7 games played and you have 6 or 7 wins, you should not change your team, right? Unless it's just a slam dunk trade. Even 5-2, it's close, right? But if you're on the opposite end, you're 2-5, and you're starting to fall out of playoffs, like making the trade makes more sense, right? Like what has happened over these first 7 weeks with this roster, unless your points for, and it is possible, right? Like you have the second amount of points for in your league, but you just have the most amount of points against, and you just have a losing record. Like maybe that situation too, but for most situations, if you have a losing record and your team is not scoring the points and you need to make a change, it sucks, but you might need to move that value to try to make playoffs. So appreciate that. Appreciate that, Cole. Let me know. Let me know anything else. Okay, Andrew says he's playing Knicks. So essentially, you're blocking his 2 best options. So I would drop Hollywood and Bourne and not look back, and drop both QBs next week on the other waivers. Okay, that makes sense. So then you want him to be forced to be picking between Spencer Rattler, Tua, and Dalton, right? And Tua was playing like the Texans or somebody like that, right? From what we looked at, where it was not a good matchup. Miami's playing the Falcons, so that's a tough, and it's at the Falcons, right? Where the Falcons are good at home, so that's a tough matchup to go into Atlanta. So that would be a tough one. The Panthers, Andy Dalton, he can make the team go, but knowing them, maybe they just want to run the ball. So I kind of don't like that. That's a tough one too, right? To want to be playing Andy Dalton, and then it was Spencer Rattler with the other one, right? Who was geez. Cole says Odunze side wins because BTJ has 1 game over 12 points. Yes, indeed. I think that was a way quicker summary than what I said. The Citizen, how are you? Trade Puka for Achan. You need a running back bad, and you have CD, DK, and Johnston as wide receivers, and Dobbins as JCM as your running backs. That's fine. That's definitely fine. Is this a PPR league too? I would assume or hope, the Citizen. If it is, that's definitely pretty good. Let's look at them in tiers and everything like that, right? For rest of season, like Puka, it would be nice if he came back next week, but you don't know, right? You really don't know. They didn't place him on IR, so it's not the biggest scare that he's going to be gone, half the rest of the season. And it kind of seems like they want him back, right? But you don't know. But whereas Achan is playing now, so there is value there. With Dobbins, is a very solid running back 2, borderline bottom end of 1, but he doesn't have much upside. And JCM, with what he's done now, you can't rely on him as a running back as of this moment. So I do like you trying to go make a trade, since you have 4 serviceable wide receivers right now, and you're taking the one that's dead asset right now, right? You can't use Puka, right? You can't use him. So I think that's a fine trade. I think that's a fine trade if you need the running back. Let's see if this is a full PPR or even half. Where is Achan? Achan's number 5. Yeah, so the only ones above him are Taylor, McCaffrey, Robinson, and Gibbs. You're probably not getting those top 3. Maybe you could get Gibbs for him, but Achan, I think, is more solid in terms of safe floor, less competition. I know they said they want to use Ollie Gordon, right? And Gibbs is definitely way more explosive, but he does split with David Montgomery. Um, so maybe you could try for it's 12-man PPR. Yeah, yeah. Then for sure HN. I was just asking because in case it was like standard, then I say then I would like be like, oh well, maybe you should target like a James Cook or Kyron Williams or somebody who has more of that style of running. But since it's PPR, Devon HN makes perfect sense, right? Because he catches so many um, receptions, right? So yeah, I think that's a good trade. I think that's a good trade, Citizen. Let me know. Just always just double check if there's any other value that you'd rather have instead. But based off of I just pulled up the running backs, and there literally is only 4 other running backs. And I doubt you're going to get Jonathan Taylor. You can always try, right? But I doubt you're going to get Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, or Jameer Gibbs. But those are the only other ones who are projected higher. Maybe Josh Jacobs, but in a PPR, Devon Achan's nice. Devon Achan's nice. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if not, Citizen, or if there's anything else. Drop a like if you can, if it helped, or any other questions. All right, what is going on? Wow. Put these users in this timeout. Okay, Bob, how are you? Someone just dropped Garrett Wilson. Drop Fannin or Dobbs. You have hits. I guess drop Fannin. If you have Pitts, you want to play Pitts rest of the season? Is that why you're only debating between Fannin and Dobbs and not Pitts as well? The only reason I ask is between Fannin and Pitts, Fannin has some interesting value. With how deep tight ends are, I would drop the tight end. So Fannin. I think Dobbs could still be serviceable, but do whatever. Oh, Pitts had his bye. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. With how what I was trying to say is, normally tight end is thin, right? But this year there just seems to be like more streamable tight ends week to week, if that makes sense. So putting an extra name on the tight end waiver wire is probably less value to the rest of your league versus somebody might be able to use Dobbs, right? But with so many tight ends that people could stream week to week, it feels like you're not leaving as much value on the waiver wire. I hope that makes sense, Bob. Hope that helps. Let me know if not, or if that brings any more questions, but go as fast as you can to pick up Garrett Wilson. I don't know why somebody dropped him. That makes very little sense to me, but if you can get him, that is gold. That is gold. All right, let's see what's going on here. The Chargers are making a move, I think. So we got Chargers versus Vikings. This guy is crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like, regardless of how frustrated you get with how bad the Jets have been, right? I mean, it's Garrett Wilson. Like he's even if he just sits on your bench, you'd rather have him collect those points on your bench than on the waiver wire. That's crazy. So yeah, hopefully that helped, Bob. Could drop a like, much appreciated if anyone could drop a like. Let's get into some of this. Well, we say on this show to make non-emotional decisions, but this guy Ryan here today made an emotional decision. I made an emotional decision, and we'll see how that ends up turning out. You know, I every bone in my body said to not play Jordan Mason, and just by pure logic and what's happened this season, it seems like Quinshon Judkins would have been an auto start. I still might throw him in my lineup later, but just how I've seen this Chargers run defense, I was like, I kind of want to see if this is true or not. So that's what I am looking for today. Not sure, this was probably a stupid idea, but I it would just look so interesting to me with the Chargers run defense, how poorly it did these past 3 weeks. And I took a shot to see if after that loss to Philly, if McConnell and team can pull things together to make this not only a competitive game, but a scoring game, and run it against this Chargers run defense. And then to see if this is a trend for the rest of the year, because the Chargers kind of started the season, some decent things looking on defense, but these past 3 games it has not looked good for the run game. So I want to see if the Vikings can capitalize on that, and what value that has over the rest of the year. So we got the Chargers driving right now. The game is 0-0. It's in the first quarter. About 5 minutes left in the first quarter. There was a flag, and right now the Chargers are driving. They're past midfield, and they just roughed the passer after a completion to, I believe, McConkey. So it's going to be a first down. All right, so with the votes today, 75% think the Vikings will win. 25% think the Chargers are going to win. So more people be thinking the Vikings are going to win today. This is at SoFi Stadium. So this is at the Chargers venue. Justin Herbert might have to throw 1,000 times again this game if it gets up there. We'll see if Kimani, Vidal and team can score on the run game. And we'll see the true value of Vidal, right, for the rest of the year. I think this game will basically tell you what to believe with in Vidal. You look back at the past 2 games, right? And Vidal has had one amazing game against a Miami defense who's absolutely terrible, and then a not so good game. Actually, I'm pulling punches. A very poor game this last game. So it's like the extreme on both ends, right? And right now he has a chance. He's on the 10-yard line, 2nd and goal. We'll see what kind of usage they have for him. Fake the handoff. Herbert getting pressured, getting free, getting tackled for a gain of about 2. Cole says he hopes the Chargers lose. I forgot is your team Kansas City, Cole? I forgot who your team is. Why do you hope the Chargers lose? They maybe a divisional? I don't know. I'm curious to see, what happens over these next couple games, because with Amari Hampton out and Vidal and you're Denver? Oh, nice. Nice. We're all in the same. Here's a Raiders. Here's a Raiders jersey, and we got a touchdown. Okay, who is this? Is this Oronde Gadsden? Is that what I heard? So we have Justin Herbert throwing the touchdown. Wow, Gadsden again. So for those of you who spent the money on Gadsden this week to get the touchdown, sorry, get the touchdown, get Gadsden. Gadsden ends up getting you the touchdown this week. This guy, I've heard interesting things about him. I heard something along the lines of in his college career, he's had a very on and off career where I believe out of the 4 years, it was like 2 years playing and 2 years injured. So the years he played, he had good production. But the years he didn't, he, obviously didn't have zero production. So everyone was hesitant on him in the NFL. But it's definitely looked like he's coming through. It's definitely looking like he's coming through, which could add a slight wrinkle to things, right? This could add a slight wrinkle to the usability of the Chargers offense. I mean, even until this point in time, when you had three people between Keenan Allen, Ladd, and Quentin, it was already feeling like roulette on who to start. But with Gadsden now also here, that just adds another mouth to feed and a little more dispersity, right, of targets. So that is that is something that's starting to look like, start Herbert, but who else? Just hope and pray that the touchdown comes your way. So we'll see if the Chargers can end up, throwing 55 passes a game and being a legit threat, game in and game out for multiple receivers. So while we wait for this, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Much celebrations for that touchdown. Drop any questions in the chat. In chat, thanks to all questions. So let's hit some thoughts before Sunday's game. There's no morning game. There's no London game. So no need for that. Early game, everything starts at the normal early game window slot. And so let's get some call outs to be thinking about as we set our lineups for this upcoming week, okay? And I think one thing that's going to affect multiple players is Lamar Jackson's health in that Baltimore-Chicago game. This is going to affect everyone's output from Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers, even the tight ends on Baltimore, to even the other side of the football, right? Even the Bears' value in terms of mostly probably Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, where if Lamar Jackson plays, you can imagine a shootout, right? Back and forth scoring. All players have value. If he doesn't play, it might be kind of like how the Saints played against the Bears, and the Bears just salt away the clock with the run game. So keep an eye out on Lamar Jackson's health, because it is going to affect, I feel like, other players in that game, whether you're going to want to, start them, sit them over other players, depending on the outlook of that game. So check Lamar's health. Another game with a big question mark, I think, that could change some values of players is the Bills versus Panthers, right? And specifically where we're going to look at this is we're going to look at what the Panthers are going to do on offense. Okay, because the Bills, it's going to be pretty standard, right? It's you're going to play James Cook, you're going to play Josh Allen. The receivers, you're only playing in like a 3 wide receiver league, or something like that. And then you might probably play Dalton Kincaid if he's healthy, and you got no better options. But on the other side of the football, the Panthers, this is going to be a very important game if you own Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dowdle, Tedero McMillan, right? You own any of these guys. This game is going to be important to look at in terms of what is the offense going to do? And what I mean by that is like, what is the splits of run plays versus pass plays, right? And are they going to limit out Andy Dalton and just try to run it 60 to 70% of the plays, right? Or are they going to let him play a little bit and therefore it boosts the value of McMillan? And when they figure out this run situation with these backs this week, right? Are they playing them Series A and Series B? Are they playing one as a pass catching back and third down back? How are they playing these Panthers? So this Bills versus Panthers game, I think, is going to be important to see what the style of the Panthers is going to be, right? Because you don't envision the Panthers leading many games from here on out. So because there's so much confusion with this backfield of Chuba and Dowdle, and so much expectation on Tetaroa and McMillan to be, a serviceable wide receiver. What happens in this game? This is going to be something to look at, and they're going to be playing against a team that is going to be out to win. They lost 2 games in a row, the Bills, so they're going to be bringing some pressure, I assume. So that's going to be important to see. If you own any of those Panthers players, what does this break out to kind of look like? So we'll get back to the call outs in a second. Let's get back to some of these questions as we have the Vikings taking over. Jordan Mason going nowhere on first down. All right, Wilson. Hey, how are you? Should you trade Gibbs, Pickens, and Kamara for Achane, Judkins, and Garrett Wilson? Ooh, that's an interesting trade. So, I without looking into things too much, this actually might be a fairly decent trade, but let's kind of break it down person by person so we can actually see the value rather than assume, right? So, with what they've done so far in the season, Gibbs versus Achane is pretty even, right? So when I look at something like that, I would look at rest of season schedule, and potential touchdown equity, offensive equity for that, right? Gibbs, even though he splits with Montgomery, that offense is in a little better shape of Miami, so there's a little bit to me on the Gibbs side versus Achane, but Achane has a little bit more of a secure, like, how many percentage of snaps are you going to be on the field per, right? So I think that's close. Right now, let's look at the receivers in terms of Pickens versus Garrett Wilson. Right, Wilson, we're not. Are we sure how hurt he is, and when he's projected to come back? Like, that's going to be a huge component of this too, right? Because you basically have one guy healthy, one guy injured. And let's see, what was it? Okay, he's not spotted on the field still, right? So since he's not spotted on the field, and it was a hyperextended knee, he might be out a couple games, okay? So that value is a little low for me. The other reason, to me, the value is a little low on the Garrett Wilson side is just like, if we compare the offenses, Wilson, the Dallas Cowboys are going to need to score every game. Their defense is trash, right? And Dak is a good quarterback and he's performing well. And we've seen in the past that it's not out of the question that 2 good wide receivers can end up in the top 15, 12, top 10 wide receivers. It's not out of the question that that's possible, right? Like, we've had years where that's happened many times before. Marvin Jones and Golden Tate. We had, T Higgins and Jamar Chase, right? It's not impossible to think that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens can both end up in that position. And Garrett Wilson, with where that offense is at, it does not look good. So I would give a little bit of edge just on the Pickens side, just because he's healthy. We know where we're at. We know where the offense is at. Even though Garrett Wilson is the number one and the for sure the target monster in that team is not scoring, and we don't know his health, right? Kamara versus Judkins, I think Judkins is a pretty clear cut winner in that decision. The only small caveat for this is well, Kamara now, with what's his name injured, has a pretty secure role, and he's in the passing game, but Judkins doesn't get used in the pass game. But that could change, right? So, I think how this kind of looks for me is if you're on the Gibbs, Pickens, and Kamara side, I think you have the higher upside, and you have like the best player at each position, because I do think Gibbs is better than Achane, and I think with where their situations are at, Pickens is better than Garrett Wilson for the situations of those offense. But I think if you level everything out, right, you might get more points per position in your roster for the other three if the other three are all playing, but the other three are not all playing right now, right? So for me, I'd rather have the Gibbs, Pickens, and Kamara side, just because of the secured health of the players of where they're at right now, and the upside that they have. Judkins is a nice win over Kamara, but Kamara right now is kind of like close your eyes and play him, and he still has some type of value sometimes, right? So I think it's close. The only reason I think you would take the other side is if you currently have the Gibbs, Pickens, and Kamara side, and you're absolutely getting destroyed at that Kamara position, right? Like you are 2-5. You're not going to make playoffs, and just every week playing Kamara has made you lose, right? That's the only reason I could see taking this trade without looking at the rest of the season schedule would make sense. But I think I'd rather have the Gibbs and Pickens side. Hope that helps, Wilson. Let me know. If not, drop a like if that did or did not, or let me know any questions. All right. Gio says, would I trade Rico and Jameson Williams for Swift? In your situation, you're the Rico owner. I would do that, I think. Here's, I guess, here's the question. Oh, you need a running back too until Hampton or Benson comes back, and you're 5-3, so you might have to take the trade. You have White right now as your running back two, but Bucky's coming back. So White's not the worst running back two. I think you're 4-3. Okay, you're 4-3. So yeah, so when you're 4-3, a trade can make sense, especially if you're waiting on value to come back, right? So you kind of need a depth piece, and Rico without Chuba is better than Swift, right? Rico without Chuba is better than Swift. However, there's Chuba there, and you have no freaking clue what's going on. You look at the offense of the Panthers, and they're a question mark as well. Jameson Williams, you're rolling the dice every week you play him, right? If you choose the correct week, you're going to hit. You're going to get 20 points and be happy. But there's going to be weeks like last where you just roll a big fat donut, right? So it's not like, sure, he may pop off. Jameson might pop off, but you're never comfortable playing him right now. And it sounds like you're okay at wide receiver. So if you're okay at wide receiver and you're looking for depth, you're basically consolidating two what if players to somebody who could you reliably play Swift in the flex, right? With where the offenses are at right now, in the situation. Swift is a more reliable flex play or reliable play than Rico, even though Rico's the better play, just in terms of opportunities and what you can foresee how well the Bears can score touchdowns versus how well the Panthers will score touchdowns. There's more, there is more opportunity for the Chicago offense to score touchdowns than there is for Carolina with where they're currently at. So I would personally do it because I'm not going to play Jameson Williams like ever, right? Like unless, your team is built for that, but like most 9 out of 10 times you're not going to play Jameson Williams out of uncomfortability, right? So if you're just consolidating to get somebody, it's like, well, should I play Rico this week? But with Swift, you're more confident to doing so. I hope that makes sense so far. Oh, you said you got Rice, Ibuka, Rome, and Tet. Yeah, so you're basically never gonna play Jameson Williams with those guys, right? You're not gonna sit Rice or Ibuka for Jameson Williams. So he's just value on your bench doing nothing, right? So that's that. And then if your running backs are CMC, right, and Omarion Hampton or Trey Benson in an ideal world and Bucky Irving, and then now you have Swift to back that up, that feels safer to me, right? The only reason you would keep Rico is like you're hoping that something happens where he gets the lead back role. But with what the offense is in terms of how much they're splitting those two guys recently, and then the lack of touchdown upside, I would rather have Swift. I hope that makes sense, Gio. Let me know if that did or did not help you. Drop a like if you can. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. All right, so we got, wow, there's way more people thinking the Vikings are going to win than I thought would be for this game. Way more people with the Vikings, but the Vikings are losing right now, I think, right? I'm watching the game out of the corner of my eyes. I watch answer these questions, but hopefully we have a nice scoring game here. Wilson says, you're going in depth with each player. It's mainly for an RB2 due to Bucky going down. I know Bucky going down hurt a lot of people. Would a Sutton, Pickens, Debo, and Kamara be good for Judkins? Okay, so I guess your goal is to get Judkins, I would assume. If you're doing Kamara plus somebody for Judkins, you're giving up a lot of value. I'm not saying you should do it, right? But what I am trying to say is that if you are giving up that much value, try to throw something in on the bottom, like maybe a throwaway wide receiver on the end of their bench or something like that, to kind of go 2 for 2, just because you are giving up a lot. In terms of those 3 wide receivers for the rest of the season, personally, I would want Sutton and Pickens out of those 3. The only reason I kind of say that is Debo is slightly hurt, right? He's been out. We don't know how well he's gonna recover. We can wish him a full recovery, right? But he's gotten the numbers he's gotten because Terry McLaurin's been out, right? Terry McLaurin is going to come back most likely this year. Jaden Daniels is kind of hurt. So to me, Debo has the lowest value out of those 3 wide receivers. So if I were going to do this, I would try to give Debo plus Kamara, right? And then get back, let's say, Judkins plus Josh Downs, right? Or something where on the bottom of their bench, that's somebody, because they're going to have to drop somebody anyways, right? In this scenario. So if you're giving a 2 for 1, right? If they're going to have to drop somebody anyways, you might as well pick up that second person that they were going to drop if it's a 2 for 1 trade. So that's what I would do, Wilson. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if or if not. Feel free to drop more questions down below. Hamza, how are you? Would you rather have Achane and Olave or Cook and London? Ooh, that's a good question. This is PPR. Oh, it is a PPR league, right? So, all right, we got a touchdown here. So this was one of the shout outs. I'll get to you in a sec, Hamza. But we got a touchdown right now. Kimani Vidal running in. We were saying we needed to look at if this guy's going to be used around the red zone and what his touchdown equity is going to be in this offense. And he just ran it in for a touchdown right now. So there we go. Touchdown. Touchdown Chargers. They're up 2 scores right now. All right. So for these trade questions, especially with enough data at this point in the season, let's say they're close, right? Like the players that you're looking at, it comes down to a couple things for me. Rest of season schedule, right? And in that rest of season schedule, like what the expectations of that particular offense are going to be, right? So when you look at it position by position, Achane versus Cook in a PPR league, Achane holds a little more value, right? Because he catches passes and all that kind of stuff. However, when you look at the touchdown equity and the offensive status of each team. So right now, James Cook did have a bye, but he's like in top 10 wide receiver. Devon Achane's number 5. So they're pretty close, right? They're pretty close. Maybe Devon Achane has like 1.5 points per game more, right? Maybe 2 points per game more with where they're at right now. But Miami looks like they're in shambles right now with their offense, right? It looks like somebody could get fired at any point. It doesn't look like anything's going to happen to Achane on that team, but you know, the chaos around him still affects his output. When you look at Cook and what the Bills are expected to do, right? They're expected to be close to Super Bowl contender, score many touchdowns every game, and probably be leading in most of these games. So that's why James Cook value looks so high, right? So on paper, to me, they're roughly about the same in terms of what's happened so far versus what their offensive opportunity is, right? Whereas Achane might be scoring a little bit more points per game and feel a little safer because he has the receptions, but he also is on the offense that could just flat out start scoring 0 points, right? Comparatively, that probably wouldn't happen to the Bills unless Josh Allen gets injured. So, like, let's say that's roughly even. Then I'm looking into rest of season schedule. So when you pull up the rest of season schedule for each of these guys, right? So for the Dolphins, Falcons this week, slightly difficult. Ravens, Bills, Commanders, Saints, Jets, Steelers, Bengals, Bucks. So there's some good defenses here, but it's not like an ultimate scary schedule. As long as their offense stays there, he should be able to still be catching some passes. It looks like they might be playing from behind on some of these games, but you know, barring anything crazy, it looks like it's not the worst schedule, right? When we pull up Buffalo schedule, they got the Panthers, not scary. Chiefs will be an interesting one. Dolphins, they should be winning. Bucks could be a good one. Texans, they probably winning. Steelers, Bengals. Patriots is a hard one. Browns is a tough one. Eagles can be a tough one. So James Cook has a decent schedule for the rest of the season for fantasy, but when you get to his playoffs, he has a little bit tougher of a schedule, right? So this then also can come down to like how likely am I making playoffs and who do I want to have for playoffs. So if I'm being honest, Achane to me feels like somebody I would rather have for the playoff schedule if all things else were the same. Not sure what your record is, but you know, let's say I'm in a position to make playoffs, right? That's what I'm looking at is, okay, I think Achane has the better chance of helping me during playoffs than Cook, right? You're 6-1. Okay, so then yeah, then the playoff schedule would probably be even more enticing to you, right? Because you're 6-1. Knock on wood that you make playoffs, right? But as long as you keep doing things correctly, you should make playoffs in most scenarios. Being 6-1 right now, right? So when you're making these trades, those last like 3 weeks, right? Depending on when your playoff schedule is, it's typically not the last week, but the 3 weeks before that, right? Somewhere around there. So we're looking at which player is going to help me, and Achan for me over Cook in that situation. So then we look at Olave versus London, and just what Olave has done on this season. He has, to me, a little safer of a floor. He may not, pop off, but it seems like he's getting, what's it called? Receptions every single week in and week out, right? He's got like 10 targets a game, and then 7 receptions, 6 receptions, 10. So in a PPR league, even though getting 7 receptions and 50 yards is not amazing, that's 12 PPR points, right? His upside, he flashed it this last week. He probably does not have the same upside that Drake London has, but he has a lot safer of a floor, whereas London popped off for, I think, more games than Olave, right? But he's also had more duds than Olave. Drake London did already have his bye, but that's how I look at it, right? So without looking at the London versus Olave schedule, based on knowing that we're going to playoffs with this Achan and Cook thing, it just feels like the Cook in London side is a lot more boom and bust. And for a team that I'm taking into playoffs, without even looking at the Olave and London side and just knowing the Achan versus Cook side, and knowing Cook is playing so many tough defenses in the playoffs, I would rather have the Achan and Olave side. The London side and the Cook side is probably a lot higher of a ceiling, right? But if it was like Cook and Olave, I might be okay because Olave's safe, right? So you could use the boomer bust of Cook. But now you have Cook and London, who are like kind of like two boomer bust. I don't want to say Cook's a boomer bust player, but a little bit, right? More so than Achan, since Cook relies mostly on touchdowns, right? But that in those playoffs weeks, he's playing the Eagles. Cook is playing the Eagles, the Browns, and the Patriots, right? His last, I don't know if you play the last week as your playoffs, but it's typically the 3 weeks before the last week, right? So the Patriots and the Browns and the Eagles are very scary run defenses, especially the Patriots and the Browns, right? So that kind of scares me to then pair with Drake London. It doesn't seem that safe, right? So for me, I'd rather lean Achan and Olave. I hope that helps. Let me know if I confused you anymore. Let me know if you want me to look into the rest of season schedule for Olave and London as well, just to see if that's going to make sense or not. But hopefully that helped you. If that helped, you could drop a like, much appreciated. But yeah, I think I'd rather have the Achan and Olave side. But just to double check, I'll start looking at the schedules just to make sure that nothing crazy jumps out to me on Olave's schedule. So he's got, in your playoffs, he's got the Titans, he's got the Jets, so he might draw Sauce Gardner on that one. He's got the Panthers, and he's got the Bucks, right? So it's not like the craziest schedule for the end of the season. He does have, not the easiest schedule. And then let's look at the Falcons. So the Falcons, and we got to remember that the Falcons, you know, 4 wide receivers, you rely so much on your quarterback, and just fact, right? We don't know why this is true or not, but Michael Penix plays way better at home than the road, and it's like night and day difference. It's like it's quite drastic, right? So he plays the Rams, the Falcons play the Rams, the Cardinals, the Bucks, the Seahawks, the Jets, the Saints. So Drake London has a uh, decent schedule, but during these playoffs, he's away against the Cardinals and away against the Bucks. So even though that those aren't scariest matchups for Penix himself, I'm a little hesitant on saying that these would be plus matchups, right? Rather than just average matchups for him. But I hope that makes sense, Hamza. Let me know. If not, Achan and Olave for me, safety going into playoffs. Thanks for all the questions. Drop any more in chat. BMB. All right, I'll be right back. Use the bathroom real quick. All right, we are back. We are back. What has been going on while we were gone? Let's see. So we got, all right, Chargers 30%, Vikings 70%. People saying to win. We're halfway into the second quarter. The Vikings are down 3-14. Wow. Wow. It's looking like a bad idea to trust the Vikings. This game. So while they kick off, let's get caught up. So 3-14. The Chargers have the ball. They're going to be taking the field. Kimani Vidal scored the last touchdown. And Gadsden scored the first one. And then the Vikings just scored a field goal. All right, and the Chargers will be taking over now, so we'll see what they can do. All right, so we got the Chargers taking the field. Kimani Vidal right now has 9 rushes for 22 yards, but he has a touchdown. He does have the touchdown. So we got Justin Herbert under center, and we have the 25-yard line, 1st and 10, drops back, fakes the handoff, looking for pass deep, finds his man, looks like Gadsden again. Wow. And they are already almost in the red zone. That was like a 50-yard play on the first play. The Vikings defense is looking extremely bad. Very, very bad. And Justin Herbert and Gadsden connect and gain a huge chunk play. So we're probably down now, cross midfield, maybe on the 35-yard line, taking the snap, handing off to Vidal, swallowed up in the backfield for a loss of about 2. So that was a big play to get them down, already in field goal position, by passing to Gadsden. So Gadsden's having another huge game. Oronde Gadsden, he already has 5 receptions for 77 yards in this first half and a touchdown. Second and 11 here. Shotgun formation. Calling for the snap. Herbert takes the snap. Looks like he got somebody offside. Firing, gets Keenan Allen for a first down. We'll see what the flag is. But we just had... Where'd he go? Justin Herbert to Keenan Allen for a first down. Yep, it was an offsides. Penalties declined. So, we would do that. Cole says, I should bring up a scoreboard. Yeah. I gotta figure out how to do that better. I had one. Let me see if I still have it somewhere. I had it, and then it became a lot for me to update. And it started to take away from me answering questions. So I gotta figure out, and maybe I'm overthinking of it. No. I'm open to it. It's just like, let me kind of talk out what I'm talking about, right? It's like, so see on here on the bottom, like I have Jordan Mason, right? But I haven't even updated anything here, right? So I had the scores before, but then like when I started answering questions, it would take away from that, and then I would go back. So maybe I'll do it on the Thursday and Monday games, like you said, because I did this on the Sunday game when there was like 7 games going, and it was just too much to do all 7 scores. So maybe I'll do like one highlight game from that, and then on the Thursday and Monday games I'll do that. Because I agree, Cole. You know, I should have the score. So thank you for that feedback. Let me figure out how to do that on the next stream. So thank you so much. I'll figure that out. And we got Justin Herbert eating a sack. So it's 14-3, second down. They're marching near the red zone. And we have them on about the 32-yard line-ish. It'll probably be about the 32-yard third line-ish. I think it's going to be third down and long. Oh, no, second down and long. Second down and 17. 32-yard line. Shotgun, empty backfield, man in motion. And play is dead, thrown into the ground. 3rd and 17. Third down, third and long. All right, so Herbert just had to throw that play away. We're at SoFi Stadium here. We got Herbert 9 for 11, 125 yards. Kimani Vidal's got 10 rushes, but not many yards, so he's not been that efficient. So that kind of confirms the lack of efficiency side almost, but he's got the touchdown, so they're using him in the red zone. So even though it's not efficient, he's getting the looks in the red zone. Herbert dropping back, firing over the middle, nobody home. Looking for a flag, no flag drawn yet. 4th and 17, probably going to have to kick a field goal. Looks like the field goal team is coming on to extend the lead. Hopefully they can extend the lead to 17-3. So key players when we look here on the side, I think this has pretty much been the story of the first half, right? Jordan Mason, he's had good production, but that was with Aaron Jones out. So I had a big question mark for him coming into this game. Is he gonna still maintain the lead role? Are they gonna bring Aaron Jones in quickly? How are they gonna make these splits? Um, and I was optimistic that the Chargers run defense not being good, and they missed the field goal. And with the Chargers run defense not being good, that they both might be able to eat. But that would rely on Carson Wentz and them moving the football, which does not look like it's happening too much so far this half. And then on the other side of the football, Justin Herbert, I just feel like this man has to play well. Like, they don't have a run game anymore. Their defense seems to be giving up more points than they would like. So it seems like Justin Herbert, in order for them to be winning games, he's going to have to ball out. It feels like he's going to have to be putting up, 300 yards a game and 3 touchdowns in order for them to stand a chance at winning. So, on the Chargers side, he had a huge game last week. He's, started off pretty decent this game. So I put him thinking, that he's pretty much gonna have to be throwing, I feel like, a lot. And that was one of the things to look at for me for Kimani Vidal to be like, is he the truth, right? Is Kimani Vidal somebody that you can trust to 20 touches in a game to get you like close to 100 yards once in a while, right? Or are his 20 touches only going to get him, 60 yards a game? And it's kind of looking like the latter, right? It's kind of looking like Kimani Vidal is going to be getting the volume, but it kind of looks like that first game, of 150 yards against Miami was more so the defense not being good rather than his offensive output. Because these past 2 games, it's been like 2 or 3 yards a carry. However, on the upside, he is being utilized in the red zone, right? So he still has touchdown equity. It's just the yards aren't there. The touches are there. So it seems like he can still be used as like a RB2 to flex for the foreseeable future because they're just using him even though it's not going anywhere. And Justin Herbert, with his 4th weapon now, Gadsden coming on, this team is dangerous, I think, through the air. As long as he can limit his turnovers, right, have a good turnover to touchdown ratio, I think the Chargers can still, maintain a good enough record to try to squeeze into the playoffs, even if Hampton has to miss most of the season and their defense doesn't hold it as well as they want. All right, so we got the Vikings taking over. We got a flag on the first play. They tried to run the football. They got a hold on the offensive lineman. So it's going to be 1st and 20 after a hold. So that play is dead. Nothing there. Nothing really developing for the run game like I thought would happen for this game. Looks like the Chargers have kind of fixed up some of these holes or something. We got Justin Jefferson taking a quick pass on the outside for like a gain of like 3 maybe. So it's going to be 2nd down and long. The Chargers are holding them down right now. Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, not doing much. I don't think the receivers are doing much though either for the Vikings. 2nd and 17. Khalil Mack is back. Just showed him. So 2nd and 17. Snap taken. Aaron Jones is on the field. Pass is caught. Justin Jefferson just a couple yards shy of the first down. 3rd and 2 going to be for these Vikings. Justin Jefferson, I think they'll probably try to get this man some usage. He's definitely one of the best receivers, arguably the best receiver in the league, but kind of hasn't been any of his high flashing games yet. So we'll see what he can do this game. It's 3rd and 2. Here we go. Man in motion. Wentz taking the snap, firing, batted up in the air, and knocked down. And Carson Wentz is now hurt. Carson Wentz is now hurt. All right. Carson Wentz is now hurt. Nice. That's tragic. Man, oh man. If he's hurt, who are they starting at quarterback then? Holy crap. 4th and 2. Who's their 3rd string? That's what I was just saying, Max Brosmer. Who is Max Brosmer? We have no idea. He's a rookie. Max Brosmer is a rookie. And Carson Wentz is hurt. Hopefully they don't have to play Max Brosmer. Chargers doing work on the Vikings. Hopefully Minnesota can put some offense together. So the Chargers, Justin Herbert has 125 yards and 1 touchdown. He also has 26 yards on the ground. Kimani Vidal has 10 carries for 21 yards. So 10 carries is a lot in a half, right? That's a good amount of carries, but 21 yards, that's 2.1 yards a carry. And he has a touchdown. So that's a big uh-oh. Receiving, Oronde Gadsden has 5 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen has 2 and 29. Ladd McConkey has 2 and 19. But the story of the day has been Oronde Gadsden. For the Vikings, Carson Wentz only has 67 yards, 8 for 14. Aaron Jones has 3 carries for 9 yards. Jordan Mason has 2 carries for 1 yard. And Justin Jefferson, 5 receptions for 55 yards. So nothing going on for the Vikings. Nothing going on. Max Brosmer. Rookie from, I think they said Minnesota. Rookie. Hopefully wins. Can come back. All right. Let's keep going with some of these notes. Interestingly enough, nobody would have thought that the Giants 2 weeks ago would beat the Eagles. But this week, they have the rematch. This week is the rematch. So I am excited to see what goes on in that game. Can the Giants pull up, a second upset or make it competitive? I think a lot of people are probably predicting that Philadelphia is going to come out in this game with a point and try to, make their name heard. So I foresee Philly coming out very aggressive on both sides of that football to try to to try to make a statement, right, that the other game was a fluke, but who knows? Hopefully the Giants can pull something off there. Cole says he hopes the Giants win. Yeah, I think most people would be okay with the Giants winning, besides the people who like the tush push and um the Eagles. So I'd be okay seeing that too. Dallas and Broncos. Who do you got? That's gonna be a good one, I think. I honestly like with how well Dak has been playing. I like want him to win. Just like I want him to win games, but the defense is bad. So this is at Denver. Um, yeah, I want to put I want to say Dallas and Dak, but with like how much momentum the Broncos had after winning that last game, it's almost like they kind of have to what's the word? Um continue that good performance. So the logical side, of me would bet on the Broncos. However, you know, we act with emotion. So if you're asking me, I would say Dallas. I want Dallas to win. Uh, I just on the logical side would say Broncos, but I want Dallas to win. I want that to be a good game. All right. So Chargers got a first down. They're trying to do something with the 2-minute warning. About the last play before the 2-minute warning. They find Lad McConkey. They get a first down. And that will be the 2-minute warning. All right, so we're going to the 2-minute warning here. So yeah, Giants versus Philadelphia. Rematch is happening. Question is, how's the game script gonna be, and who's gonna be the fantasy winners for that game? I honestly, it would be cool, right, for the Giants to win. I think this is honestly going to be a game where it's going to be something like 6-28 or something like that, where Philly just really tries to put it to them. Um, you know, we'll see how much. I think another interesting thing will be to see the resilience, right? The resilience and the bounce back factor of Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo, because when you play a game like how they played, where you think you're about to win, right? Then you think you're about to lose, and then you think you're about to win again, and then you just lose in the like the worst way possible. That's got to suck, the confidence out of your locker room when that loss happened like that. So um we'll see the resilience factor on if Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo and them could just shake off that loss and get right back into the game, or how things go. Um the Jets, man. The Jets. The Jets are just a sad face right now. The Jets is like, you want to play their players because they're so talented, on an individual, like what they've done or what they've expected to do. Justin Fields in the top 10 of quarterbacks before, looks like the worst quarterback in history out there right now. Right. Garrett Wilson is injured, but easily could be a wide receiver one almost every season. Brees Hall finished, top 5 running back 2 years ago. Mason Taylor supposed to, potentially be a great tight end, but like, how can you trust any of them? You cannot. You cannot. So I want Dallas to win. All right, so looks like people are switching their choices to the Vikings. Vikings or the Chargers. The Chargers starting to take a couple more votes. So we got 1st and 10 for the Chargers. Empty backfield. Herbert stepping up, running it himself, getting tackled just past midfield. Just past midfield. We got Herbert rushing it himself, gain of probably like 20-ish yards or so. That was a big run. Big run. So we got on the 49-yard line, past midfield, dropping back, running it for it himself. Gain of maybe 6 or 7. So Herbert doing it himself these past couple plays. They got calling a timeout. The Chargers are. Minute 16 left. All right. So we got timeout. We got a timeout going. The Chargers easily in control here the whole game. And a way to score to end the half. I think the Chargers also get the ball to start the second half. So the Chargers sitting in really nice position right now. And we got a minute 16 left in the first half. Justin Herbert, past 2 plays, has ran it, kept it himself, and gotten the team in close to scoring position. Might be too long for a field goal or very long field goal, but 2nd down and 3, shotgun, takes the snap, dropping back, firing over the middle, finding his man, Lad McConkey, it looks like. It is Lad McConkey. So we got a minute left in the game. Herbert, shotgun formation, taking the snap, firing downfield, and looking for Keenan Allen. No good. No good. Looking for Keenan Allen up the sideline. Had one hand on the ball, but could not get 2 hands on the ball. So 2nd down and 10. Right now, the Vikings are looking like they're getting stomped on for this game. Offensive play shows it 69 whole yards for Minnesota and 239 yards for the Chargers. It's a one-sided game, lopsided game completely. Chargers taking the snap, dropping back, looking for the end zone, and found his man. Touchdown. There you go. We got Justin Herbert throwing to Lad McConkey for the touchdown. 27-yard touchdown. Finding him in the end zone, making it look easy. Justin Herbert throwing the touchdown to Lad McConkey, 27 yards. They are wheeling and dealing on these Vikings. Lad McConkey catching his touchdown. Justin Herbert with 2 touchdowns in the first half. Extra point is good. The Chargers are up 21-3 against the Vikings. This is looking brutal. Looking brutal for these Vikings. 45 seconds left in this game for the first half. We shall see if they could do anything or not. The Vikings, they have not looked good all half. They don't even have 100 yards of total offense. Carson Wentz looks to be okay. He walked off slightly shaken on the last drive, but he's warming up like he is going to be the one leading this offensive drive. But Herbert almost has 200 yards. He has 191 yards and 2 touchdowns in this first half. It's fantastic. Fantastic. All right, let's get some celebrations for. All right, so we got 40-yard line. It was a faulted kick, so pretty good field position. We got Carson Wentz in the shotgun, man in motion. All 3 timeouts. There's 45 seconds left. Looking over the middle, finds his man. First down. Looks like Jordan Addison. Yeah, Jordan Addison. Timeout taken. They got a first down. So Justin Herbert and team with a 21-3 lead at the half. All right, so we got Carson Wentz and team on the 44-yard line. Shotgun dropping back. Wentz got sacked. Wentz got sacked. So another timeout has to be taken. Oh, man. Wentz getting sacked. Okay. We'll see what Wentz can do in these last few seconds of the half. So they are down 21-3. They need to make some magic happen. It's 2nd and 11. They cannot give this up. They have decent field position to be able to try to get away with a field goal to end the half. So let's see if they can be disciplined, figure things out, get 10 more yards and get a field goal to end this half. But Wentz is taking another sack. I don't know what he's doing, man. 3rd down. 3rd and final timeout needs to be taken. 3rd and final timeout needs to be taken here. So Wentz just took back-to-back sacks. He's kind of looked like this last game too, right? He's been looking like this. Just feeling like too many sacks. Looks like he still thinks he could break free from all the sacks like he did 10 years ago or whatever it was. All right. 3rd and 18, shotgun. Takes the snap, drops back. Looking, firing, hitting Justin Jefferson. No timeouts. They're at a 4th down. You cannot spike it. So they're setting up the field goal. 7 seconds left. 4 seconds left. Snap is off. Kick is up. And kick is good. No good. It was short. It was straight enough, but it was short. That's why I thought it was good. It was headed right between the uprights, and it looked good from the camera. And then the ball landed like right in front of the pile or the uprights. I'm like, oh, it didn't even make it. All right, so 3-21. 3-21. We got 3-21. 21-3. It was literally a foot short. It was literally just a foot short for the kick. Oh my goodness. All right. All right. So celebrations to everybody who played Oronde, Gadsden, or McConkey, or Justin Herbert. You're probably very happy with all of those players. Let's look at some stats while we wait for this to kick back up. All right, so we got some things to review. Let's do this real quick. All right. Stock up for the week. Who do we like from last week that we feel has put their team in positions to win and or be great fantasy players for the rest of the season? So Drake May, 2nd-year quarterback, and this man is on fire. This man is on fire. Drake May, not necessarily like one specific target, you know, all these touchdowns are being spread out to all the different players on the Patriots, and I kind of foresee that for the rest of the year. Maybe there'll be a consolidation of targets to Stephon Diggs eventually, but just with how Drake May is looking, it looks like he doesn't have necessarily a favorite target and just wants to throw to the open man or, you know, the correct scheme, whatever read is open. So kind of like Justin Herbert, right? So I think Drake May should be good for the rest of the season. We didn't do a tight end. We did 2 wide receivers this week. First one being T. Higgins. And I think, you know, he's still a very risky play. But comparatively to the weeks before, I think T. Higgins' stock did go up last week, obviously with a very great week. But just in terms of how that whole Cincinnati offense looks now with Joe Flacco, there's at least a breath of life into it, right? And since there is a breath of life into the offense, hopefully that means T. Higgins can get some consistent usage. And when I mean consistent life, right, it looks good for fantasy, right? If you look at the target consolidation between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, those 2 guys basically account for 80%, you know, of the targets last week. And on a week-to-week basis, I could see those 2 guys taking up, you know, 2/3 of their team's targets and just being complete target monsters. Like, you know, Joe Flacco's a seasoned veteran, right? So him coming into this offense, seeing what Jake Browning did, seeing how angry the fan base got, right? And how bad the offense ended up the team ended up being. I think Joe Flacco's smart enough as a veteran to be like, well, doesn't matter if we lose. I'm throwing it 20 times to Jamar Chase and 10 times to T. Higgins. And I don't care if we win or lose because that's the only way, fans will not be mad at me. The team won't be mad. So I foresee those guys continuing to get double-digit targets every game. And hopefully that means fantasy output for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman has very, very silently been the most quiet borderline wide receiver one in this league. He has put up Chris Olave too, right? But Michael Pittman has caught touchdowns in so many games, right? And he just looks like he is going to be that consistent target for Daniel Jones. And you want pieces of good offenses, right? And the Colts look like they're going to be one of the better offenses for the duration of the season. So even though there's a lot of people to target in that offense, Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, right? There's a lot of names. Pittman just seems out of the three wide receivers to be the most veteran style wide receiver that when you need the third down or when you need the end zone, who Daniel Jones is looking for. So, as a locked and loaded either wide receiver 2 or flex, I see Michael Pittman more weeks than not being able to provide you what you need. So Michael Pittman for the rest of the season, I think is a very startable wide receiver 2 to flex. Running back, Cam Scatterboot. This guy is probably my biggest regret on the season. I drafted him, and when the news with everything that happened in the first week, I had a choice I had to pick somebody up, and I either had to drop Cam Scatterboot or Zach Charbonnet. And because Cam Scatterboot did not get any touches that first week, I was like, oh man, they don't believe in him. So I dropped him. That was the worst idea ever. This has been obvious with him being now a top 5 running back for the first half of this season. The Citizen. So is Gadsden a must start the rest of the season? I mean, I think, with where the tight end position is at least for the next foreseeable couple weeks, yes, right? That position is so thin that you got to ride the hot hand, right? And even if he duds or whatever, I think at least you want pieces of good offenses, right? That's what I was just talking about. And the Chargers are going to be foreseeably a good offense. And even though it's scary to hold a wide receiver, right? I feel like the tight end, it's always scary to hold because all you're looking for is a touchdown. And with what Gadsden has done, these past 3 games, you kind of have to just hope for it, right? Otherwise, if you're playing him or Zach Ertz or Hunter Henry or something like that, you might as well swap out for the fresh and new possibility, right? You ride the veterans for those first few weeks as the whole season gets figured out for every team. But then now at this point, there's no upside in a lot of these tight ends, right? So this guy has upside. So I think he's someone you could roll out for the foreseeable future. So good call, Citizen. I would say so. All right. So there's the stock ups. Now let's talk some stock down. Stock going down. So this might be a little bit of game script, but just because it's game script doesn't mean that same game script cannot happen again, right? So that's why it is still a stock down for me. And the Bears offense in terms of the Bears passing offense, right? And uh that offense as a whole, you know, I with everybody too, right? With Ben Johnson taking over, was probably hoping for another Detroit Lions and 40 points a game and shootouts every game. It kind of does not look like that's going to be the case um for this offense in the future. And I think the reason being is I think Ben Johnson doesn't feel, or this offense doesn't feel as, secure as the Lions. So it feels more like it's going to be a lot of game management being done. So if you look at, you know, Caleb's numbers, right? These past 2 weeks, they've been able to win by relying more on the running game than we originally thought the running game would give, right? Like we've seen what DeAndre Swift has been able to do on the course of a year. And we would assume that something like 15 carries for 75 yards would be his, higher potential. Not his highest potential, but his higher potential, right? But these past 2 games, they found ways to basically get Swift, closer to 10 yards a touch. So it's unheard of. I don't think it's going to stay that high, for the entire duration of the rest of the season. But that is to say that, with how Caleb Williams has, you just look at his points 24, 16, 29, 11, 24, it's like you're alternating good or bad. And it's just hard. It's going to be hard to tell, like, which game scripts are going to be good. So this week for me is under the microscope, right? Under the microscope for the Chicago Bears of what should we expect from you, especially if they're playing Baltimore, right? Especially if they end up playing Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, and if Lamar Jackson can put up 30 points, right? Like how's that going to look for the Bears? Can you guys match suit? Like you guys are trying to run the ball right now, but are you going to be able to pass the ball if push comes to shove? Or is this going to be a 14-30 game with Caleb getting 150 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, and, them stuffing DeAndre Swift? So I think this game for me matters a lot in terms of what is the potential of the Bears for the rest of the season, because they're 4-2 playing how they've been playing. And it doesn't seem like they necessarily want to take a bunch of risks right now with trying to go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns with Caleb, but instead are more content with just running the football if they can get it, screen passes, things like that. So that leads to Rome Odunze as well, right? Because Rome can only perform if Caleb performs as a passer. So similarly here, I think his upside potential, we've all seen what it could be in terms of, wide receiver 1. But we'll see if he can actually do that, if the Bears allow those opportunities to happen or not. Big game this week, I think. George Kittle, it's not a question of skill. For me, it's also, similarly to the Bears, it's a question of game script. What is the game script going to be for George Kittle, right? And I think last week was a very good example of what could happen for the game scripts of George Kittle, where if it's just in the cards to run the football, they are totally content with giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey 25 to 30 times, right? And just running the football the entire game. So, I don't know if he has a secure game script every game, George Kittle, or not, but that he's also under the microscope. Finally, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, same thing as well. He had great opportunities to make something happen, and these past 2 weeks he just hasn't he hasn't done anything. So big game for all these guys coming up to see rest of season value. We shall see. We shall see. All right, let's get back to the game here, and we'll kind of check out the first bit, and then we'll call it a night after that. So let's just kind of check out a little bit of what if there's any changes in the second half to game scripts or potential for each team, or if I just made the worst decision playing Jordan Mason. All right, so the Chargers get to take the ball on this first possession of this half. We got the Chargers taking the first possession of this half. First run got 7 yards, so 2nd and 3 on the 40-yard line. Another rush. First down to about midfield. So Kimani Vidal gets a couple rushes to start the second half, couple good blocks. Couple good blocks. And Vidal got some good rushes back to back. So 1st and 10 here. Justin Herbert under center. His fullback in with Vidal in the back. Hand it off again. And he gets a good yards again. So 3 straight running plays. Each running play got a good burst, maybe like 7-8 yards each. So very good run game to start the second half. 2nd and 1 after a 9-yard gain. So the Chargers are marching it back straight up the field again. No issue whatsoever. Under center. Herbert taking the snap. Handoff again. All right. Swallowed up in the backfield. It's going to be 3rd and about 2 maybe. All right. So this is 3rd and 1. 3rd and 1 for these Chargers. Here it goes. Guy in motion. Fakes the handoff. Herbert finds the open man. First down. So good opening drive for the Chargers. Good drive by the Chargers. Marching towards the red zone, 33-yard line. Another run. Swallowed up in the backfield. Loss of about 2. Going to be 2nd and maybe 12-ish. But they're in field goal range. They've just been getting their way all game against this Vikings defense. 2nd and 13 is going to be the yardage. The Chargers got 2nd and 13 on the 36 yard line. Man in motion. You got shotgun formation. And snap is off. Quick pass. McConkey just shy of the first down. It's going to be 3rd and about 2. Genwell, L Sport, L NFL, but we winning the Super Bowl. You guys are destroying them. It has been a game of all Chargers, there is no highlights of the Vikings. This game has been all Chargers. 3rd down and 2, shotgun formation for Herbert. And Herbert's team is taking a timeout. The Chargers are taking the timeout. So this game has been very, very sideways. Looks like more and more people over time are starting to lean towards the Chargers. It was like 80% Vikings, 20% Chargers. And by now, it is now close to 50-50. It is very close to 50-50 now. It's come back to 50-50 for the Chargers. Hopefully your Chargers can not only win this, but put a statement to the team. What's happening to the Kings? They're not moving the ball at all. It's not only like no run game, but it's like no run game. Wentz is like 50% right now, maybe 60%, but like nothing deep, right? Everything's just kind of, it's like, I think he has like 70 yards, on the half. He's taking a lot of sacks. It's just the whole game has just looked, it's kind of looked like how that Jets looked like that one game that we were watching, just really bad football by the Vikings right now. Really good football by Justin Herbert, if I'm being honest. He's basically Justin Herbert's basically been controlling the ball the entire game. Vidal had on this drive, he had like 3 rushes for like 30 yards, but before that, Vidal was like 10 rushes for 20 yards, right? So Herbert had like 200 yards, 3 touchdowns in the first half. So it's this game has been all Herbert right now. So field goal is good for the Chargers. You had this as a close game. I know. I think we were talking about that, right? But definitely not a close game. Definitely not a close game right now. Hopefully the Vikings can do something and score here to make it somewhat interesting, right? Can't be a blow out the whole game. So hopefully Yikes, Kings. That was a good one. That was a good one. All right. Let's move this around a little bit. All right. Hopefully, speaking of Kings, MJ finally back. Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan is back. Marvin Jones? Marvin Jones is back. Mac Jones from the San Francisco 49ers. Who's MJ? Who is MJ? Hey, and didn't didn't your didn't your Toronto Blue Jays win too? Oh yeah, Michael Jordan. Michael. Oh, because the NBA's back. Oh, Michael Jordan was back. Interesting. Interesting. Hey, didn't your Tor Toronto win to get to the not the Super Bowl, the World Series? I think that was you, right? That was talking about staying staying up all week. Was that you, Jen? Staying up all week to watch all the sports? All right, we got a decent return. Hopefully, this flag is not against the Vikings, but it probably is. Probably is. You have no dog in MLB, but it's nice to see the Blue Jays wins, but you like the Dodgers. What does the MLB community think of the Dodgers? Because I'm from LA, right? So everybody loves the Dodgers, obviously, when you're from LA, but I'm curious, are they like Philadelphia, where for the NFL or something where nobody likes them because, their team is too stacked or, too much money in it or something like that. I will say that the Dodgers, when, it doesn't matter if it's the Dodgers or the Lakers or the Rams or whoever. I'm from LA, right? Our city is retarded because every time, or I shouldn't say that. I hope I don't get demonetized. Because every time we win something like, the MLB World Series or Super Bowl, we light our own city on fire, and I'm like, why do we do this? Why do we light our own city on fire when we win the championships? Everybody envies the amount of talent they have. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, yeah, that's what I would assume. Like, kind of, isn't that what like the Yankees were known for? To have like the most talent, most money on a roster, not even physically possible by most teams. Second and 12, Aaron Jones in some space gets a first down. Aaron Jones getting some space and a first down. They got a flag. It's taking it back. All right. So Aaron Jones got the first down, but looks like a hold on the offensive line, and they're going to wipe off the play. Or an ineligible man downfield. What is the call? There is no foul. Okay, play stands is called. The New Yorkers and Philadelphians light their own city on fire after every loss. Ooh, roasted. Hey, but I guess you're now part of the city too, since you're a Chargers fan and the Chargers are part of LA. So if the Chargers win the Super Bowl, your team could be the foolish team lighting our city on fire, not the Rams. Um, hopefully the Chargers will make playoffs though. All right, first and 10, shotgun formation. Aaron Jones in motion. Snap is off. Carson Wentz up the middle, trying to hit his tight end. Off the hands. No catch. So, going to be second and 10. They're showing right now career revivals of Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Daniel Jones, who this season are all on top of the league, but had difficult starts to their career. All right, we got a handoff to Aaron Jones going up the middle, gain of like maybe 3 or 4. It's going to be third down. Third down. This is a huge third down. They cannot afford to punt yet again. They've already just been punting all game. 3rd and 5. Doesn't look like Carson Wentz could hear the play call. This looks like it's going to be close one. 12 seconds left on the play clock. 10 seconds left on the play clock. Everybody rush into the line. It's got to be called quick. And ball is off. 3rd and 5. Carson Wentz getting sacked again. Wow. I mean, I guess consider yourself a Florida since every other American sports team I follow is from Florida except the Chargers. That is so interesting. Everybody is from Florida except the Chargers. So, oh yeah, because you like the Heat. That's right. And then I forgot you said, no, who's Florida? Is Florida Marlins? Florida's the Marlins, no? But then you don't like the Bucks or Jacksonville or the Dolphins, huh? It is the Florida Marlins, right? But you don't like the Florida has 3 teams, right? Buccaneers, Jaguars, and the Dolphins. Dolphins, nobody likes the Dolphins. Jacksonville, nobody likes the Jaguars. So it's only the Bucks, I guess, that anybody could like from Florida. But you like the Chargers on the opposite coast, right? So you really don't mind anything about the Major League. So it's just NBA. Wait. Oh, hockey, maybe? Is it hockey your other sport? And then the Chargers over here in LA. Interesting. Oh, college football. And hockey. College football, who's that? So that's Miami. Who for college football? I forgot. Florida State. Okay. Florida State. Do you watch NCAA basketball too? Because NCAA basketball has decent teams from Florida as well. I think they won. Did they win? No. They almost did. They win the championship? Was Florida? Who the heck did Florida play? I don't even remember. Okay, but you like everybody from Florida. And then the Chargers. But not the Buccaneers. Not the Buccaneers. You're just starting to watch college sports. Got it. Yeah. Basketball always has that tournament, right? March Madness. For basketball. College football is fun in a sense because like the score there's typically always so much more scoring, right? It's like the NFL, like no matter how much we talk smack on an NFL defense, like a terrible NFL defense is still like very, very good, right? Compared to college football. So college football, you get those games that are like 48-55, right? And it's like just like touchdown every quarter, every other play. They said it's picked off? No way. Did they just throw an interception and just give life back to the Vikings? Oh, it was tipped on the line of scrimmage, and it looks like it might have been intercepted by the linebackers, I think. So one of the linemen gets a hand on it, ball goes up in the air, and the ball looks like it is intercepted. Bucks are a team, yeah, or 71-6 game. Yeah, that's fun. And also because like when you're in college, you think you know, right? But you don't really know who's going to the pros. So if like your team has like a potential, wait, which way's the camera? A potential pro, right? It's kind of like, oh, maybe, right? Maybe I could maybe this person will go to the NFL, hopefully this, so that's kind of fun to cheer for as well when you're like watching college sports. You're like, how good is this guy? All right. So this is Minnesota's best chance for a touchdown. They got a interception in near the red zone, right? So they're near the red zone on about the 22-yard line, second down and 6. And we got Carson Wentz directing in a shotgun right now, taking the snap, looking, finding his man up the middle, and we got TJ Hockenson for the first down. This is the closest they've been. First and goal. Opportunity for the Vikings to do something here. They got to bring this back. They cannot allow this to just go to a field goal. They have to punch it in for a touchdown here. First and goal. The first time they sniffed the end zone, and it's already 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Here we go. First and goal. They need a touchdown. They're going quick. And Hunch tried to flip it. Right now, they're not calling anything, but that did look like a forward pass. That didn't look like a fumble. They're pretending like it was a touchdown. General says the Hurricanes did fire their head coach because he was failing his crop of players in this apparent 5-star recruit quarterback. Oh, really? Wait, we're talking about, wasn't Miami the team that we were talking about last week? Where? Huh. When did they? It says they fired defensive guy last year. Interesting. We're talking about football, right? I didn't see the Hurricanes had to pay him like 50 million. Holy smokes. This was at the end of last year. I see something on the defensive coordinator. All right, second and goal. Oh my God. They're just going to settle for a field goal here. This is crazy. This is so bad. Aaron Jones is getting so much usage this game. It's insane. Florida. Okay, not Miami. Got it. Got it. All right, third and goal. Dropping back, firing in the end zone, and Aaron Jones looking for a flag. He's not going to get it. He's not going to get it. Okay. Dang. Okay, so Florida owes $21 million within 30 days to Napier. Holy smokes. I mean, so this guy made $21 million for finding the door. The Florida Gators, they gave the guy $21 million just to walk out the door. Holy smokes. That's crazy. That is pretty crazy. So, yeah, what are the rankings? Oh yeah, so field goal. Whoop-de-doo. Who cares, right? Who really cares? All right, so they say so Miami. So you like Florida State. Miami's the highest ranked, it looks like. South Florida's ranked 2. Florida State is not ranked, it looks like. They are not ranked. Oh man, it's tough sledding being a Florida State fan, it looks like. Recently. So Florida State beat Alabama. But then lost to Virginia in overtime. Lost to Miami, close one. Oh, Florida State's been having a few tough games, it looks like. Hawk me like Florida State for football. I haven't really heard that before. I know Florida State on the basketball end when they were competitive for the championship in basketball, but I haven't heard of them being competitive in football in a while. Oh, so 2023 they made it to the Orange Bowl. Got it. Florida State made it to the Orange Bowl a couple years ago. Last year they had a terrible year. This year they're starting off a little rough. They started off good, 3-0, and then they went 0-4. Oh yeah, San Diego State. We were talking about San Diego State too, right? All right, 4th and goal from the 9 for the Vikings. They're going for it on 4th down. They're going for it on 4th down. Addison in motion. Wentz taking the snap. Wentz looking. He's going to get sacked. Dude, Wentz, he just holds on to the ball way too long. He just holds on to the ball way, way too long. What is he doing? How does he get sacked like that so many times? Oh no, illegal contact on the defense? Oh my goodness. First down. Wow, that was a terrible play. Illegal contact on Jordan Addison in the end zone. Wow. That was 4th and goal. And that was a terrible foul. There goes your cornerback, Genwill. Oh no. Unfortunate 1st and goal. All right. Jordan Mason is here. This might be my only opportunity in the entire game. Low snap, firing for the end zone, and they find Jordan Addison. Touchdown, Addison. All right, Carson Wentz to Jordan Addison. There we go. Boom. All right, so touchdown scored there. Gonna at least brings it back to a 2-possession game. So 10-24. Hopefully 10 to 24. Hopefully they can get them 3 and out and get a good score again. PJ, how are you? Let's see. Do you trade Wandale and Marvin? I assume Marvin Harrison, Worthy, or Dobbins for Bucky? You got plenty of wide receiver depth, but you're hoping to get Bucky so you can have Will. I don't think the last message went through, by the way. So PJ, I just want to make sure I'm getting this correct. You're asking me, do you trade Wandale, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then either Worthy or Dobbins for Bucky? So 3 players for Bucky. And I just want to make sure that that is correct, right? And so you're trying to have. Oh, so you have Rachaad White, and then you're trying to get Bucky. Okay, I get what you're saying. So I think you are giving up, a lot of players, right? But I would give up Worthy over Dobbins if that's what you're asking me. In this scenario, just because running backs who get 15 touches a game, there's very few of them, right? And even though Xavier Worthy's nice, he's in an offense where the ball's spread around a lot, and he's not going to be guaranteed to be a wide receiver too. He'll probably just be like a high-end flex play or something. But Dobbins can be consistent, or he could be traded as well for more value, right? But Worthy by himself is not trade value, but Dobbins by himself can be trade value, right? So I would rather hold Dobbins if I could, and then flip him for something else down the line. He wants Wandale, but do I attach either? Oh. Who do you attach? Okay. Sorry. So he wants Wandale, and then he wants one. You're gonna attach somebody else, right? So if you have plenty of receiver depth, right? I think you're best off giving away Worthy and then holding Marvin and Dobbins. Here's my logic for this. Okay. So Dobbins, we already talked about running backs being scarce and standalone value. Dobbins has standalone trade value, right? Worthy by himself, he does not have trade value. So Worthy is the lowest on the totem pole for me, because even though Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't look like the most legit thing right now, it's still possible that turns around, right? So Marvin on his offense has a higher ceiling and higher potential cap than Worthy does, with Rashee Rice, right? And Travis Kelce, so many mouths to feed in that offense that he's not necessarily, like upside, right? But Marvin at least has that upside. So even if you're just sitting Marv on your bench, there's still upside. And then Dobbins has the most value standalone. So I would aim for Worthy and Wandale. Then if he says no, right, then you can upgrade to one of the other guys. I hope that makes sense. But let me know if that helped or not, PJ. If you drop a like, much appreciated. But ask any questions, or if I am not making sense. But absolutely, I would trade Wandale plus one of those guys for Bucky. If it had to be J.K. Dobbins, because that's what they wanted, I would ask for Bucky plus a throwaway on the end of their bench, in order to make your value a little better, right? But I'd be okay. I'd prefer to give away Worthy out of those 3. Hope that makes sense. Let me know if that helped or not, PJ. So General says you're talking about the authorities handcuffing Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups over gambling. I heard about Terry Rozier before, right? I didn't know. Did something else pop up recently? Oh my God, 30 individuals for poker operation? What? And Chauncey Billups? Wow. What is going on? Did you hear about that Kawhi Leonard one too with the owner and the promotional bonus from the fraudulent company? That is crazy too. But I know last year the NBA had like a huge sting on a bunch of uh a bunch of players for betting. So I do know they were cracking down on that, but no, I did not see this thing recently for Chauncey Billups too and all these guys. That's crazy. That is crazy. But there's so much fishy things happening in the NBA. PJ says he wants Wandale. Oh no, I already answered this. I already answered this. Yeah. So take that PJ. Hope that helped. The Kawhi one is so. Every owner does it, but Steve Ballmer just didn't hide it properly. Yeah, well, the thing is it's not only, but to me, this one is a little different because, or it's a little, I think, worse in my opinion. It's a little worse in my opinion because there was multiple cash input, right? There's multiple cash input into that company, and that company was found out to be essentially a money laundering scheme. So that's why I think that's worse because like not only was it a bad and fishy uh promotion, right? Or advertising signing, whatever you want, signing bonus, right? But it was like to a company that like if you look into their records, they're like it, it's a shady company in terms of like scamming um like basically known for doing stuff like this, right? So that was like I guess peeling back the onion of like opening a whole new Pandora's box of like, oh crap, this is not just illegal in terms of the promotion, but the company itself. Like, what are you guys doing? Type of thing. Um, the NBA already said they won't be punished harshly. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, there's there's so much of that. It's like I don't understand too. Like, well, I guess like when it's like $20 million for like Kawhi Leonard, that's a little different than like 50 grand or 100 grand for some of these side bets that these guys get caught with, right? But it's like crazy. It's like you know these guys betting on the side on themselves to make their over unders or not, and then getting caught. It's like fuck, you guys are giving up so much for these little side bets, you know. Um, they're just gonna find Steve Ballmer, who's one of the richest owners in the NBA. Yeah, I I I think that that guy is one of the least liked owners too, right? In the NBA in terms of like public sentiment or however you want to call it. Um, I don't think he's very liked. Um, but no, I did not hear about Chauncey Billups and them getting caught on this gambling scandal. I did not hear about this. So illegal poker operation tied to the mafia. And then Rozier, yeah, I knew about him manipulating his performance for betting, right? Both these guys are placed on immediate leave. It says both these guys are placed on immediate leave. FBI claims Chauncey Billups of helping the mob during rigged games of $7 million in losses. So there's 31 defendants of this. Wow, Chauncey, and then Chauncey Billups is also in a wire fraud, money laundering scheme with this rigged poker game. Okay, and it says pro poker player. A rigged game was built around him. And sports betting for Terry Rozier for 6 of them, 6 players between 2022 to 2024. And so for Chauncey Billups, they're accused of using high-tech technology to steal money secretly during fixed games. This is from the Gambino family and the mafia. Charges include wire fraud, gambling, and money laundering and extortion. Wow. This is crazy. No, did not see it all. He's fairly liked. He gives back a lot to the fans and community, but always will be in the shadow of the Lakers. But hey, Adam Silver is running the NBA well, right? If you mean by running it well into the ground, then yes. Then absolutely he's running it well into the ground. Just look at how awesome the viewership is year over year for the NBA, and it is not looking good. I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a bubble on that, right? I feel like there's going to be a bubble on that because, you know, like I get, and maybe that's why the NFL is going so hard into these international games, right? And I'm like talking while this game's in break. I'm talking about this from a business perspective, right? In the sense that, you know, over the course of time, even like when Michael Jordan or Jerry Rice and these guys are playing, most of the most of the revenue, most of the viewership came from America, right? But the views kind of cap out at certain numbers, right? And sure you could raise ticket prices, sure you could raise advertising prices and all these things, but you know, I think it's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen, and I feel like it's going to explode first in the NBA before the NFL. But what you're basically doing is like every year, right? But realistically, every couple years, your contracts are getting bigger and bigger for all of these star players, right? So that means that your market cap is, your salary cap is huge, right? And that means that your expected cash outlay over these years is growing more and more, right? As your LeBron James contract or your Steph Curry contract goes from like 100 million over 4 years to 200 million over 4 years for the exact same players, right? The exact same number of players that play on the field, and so that's an expected amount of money per year. But if the viewership can't keep up, where does that money come from? And so that's why I think the NFL is trying to like take this stab at expanding into international markets, right? Right. And expand into the international market so they can try to get the viewership and the revenue from foreign countries. Um, but the NBA, because you know these guys' contracts are so big, and year over year the viewership is going down and down and down for the NBA. There's gonna be an inflection point where you know your profits don't match your losses. Already, most of these teams are in the red. Um, they're so I'm just curious to see what's going to happen. Um, and search NBA biggest contract. It's real time biggest contract, right? So Tatum is 300 million for 5 years, so average 62 million a year, and Jalen Brown 57 million, right? So this is insane, bro. This is insane how much money these guys are making per year, you know. And the viewership has been going down and down and down and down and down. So it's like, where's this money all going to come from? You know, where's how's this sustainable? If you have, let's see, like Jason Tatum's ends in 2029, right? So you owe, you know, you owe freaking $250 million just for this one player. And what if this player, you know, I think he's gonna come back, right? But what if they don't come back, right? What if they can't come back? That's just like dead loss. Eventually, I don't know what's gonna happen, right? That's actually a good segue as well because they were talking on capping the quarterback salaries. Yeah, these and then so now let's flip to the NFL contracts, right? Like like the NFL, the viewership is not declining like the NBA, but like the cash spend is just as ridiculous, you know. Patrick Mahomes average yearly salary 45 million, Josh Allen 55 million. Uh guaranteed money uh 60 million, 140 million. Yeah, like these this is insane. Like even for a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you're paying 55 million a year, you know? Holy smokes. Tua Tagovailoa, you're paying 53 million a year. Like what are we doing here, guys? What are we doing here? You know, and these are just the quarterbacks. Like let's look at then you stack this up for every position, you know, your cash outlay every year is insane to be able to keep it, right? Is Joe Burrow the highest paid uh contract? Let me see. Burrow is not the highest. Josh Allen is higher. Josh Allen's is higher. So Patrick Mahomes is the longest, right? It's a 10-year for 450 million, and then the guaranteed is 60 out of that. Josh Allen's is a 6-year contract for 330 million, with slightly higher guaranteed. Joe Burrow has 1 year less on his contract than Josh Allen. They average to make the same per year. And then they're about the same amount of guaranteed uh, money, but the practical guaranteed of Josh's is higher. So Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence are projected to make around the same amount of money. That's insane. And Brock Purdy too. So Trevor Lawrence and Brock Purdy basically make the same amount of money as Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert as well. But Justin Herbert's better than Trevor Lawrence and Brock Purdy, right? Lamar Jackson as well, but he's also better than Trevor Lawrence and Brock Purdy. Jalen Hurts too. Dak Prescott, he's better than them too. And then Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson are making 46 million. Tua makes 53. Jared Goff makes 53. Jeez, man. This is crazy. You're lucky Saudi money hasn't come in yet. You mean like golf? I don't know if you followed golf at all, but like that was the craziest move. You make a competitive league that splits everything, takes the value of the professional golf tour, demotes it in like half, makes the value of the other company to force a buyout. that that was the craziest story. That was the most ridiculous thing ever. All right, 30-yard line for Carson Wentz, firing to his tight end, finding some room for a first down. Um, yeah, how much was that? That was oh man, intercepted. Intercepted. Yeah, the amount of money they could give is a lot because they take all the money from the oil in their country and only the mafia, the Saudi mafia gets to keep the money. So yeah, I don't know if you saw that golf one either from Saudi, but that was pretty crazy. Um it was a $3 billion $3 billion merger, I think. The final deal has not been reached still after 2 years. Okay, so the deal is still not finalized and the partnership is not going on. Okay, so that partnership did not go through. It was not finalized yet. It's still in the works or still doesn't feel close. Okay. It does not feel close. So that one did not cross the finish line. That merger did not cross the finish line. Okay. So interception by Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz looks so bad. He looks so bad. He's getting sacked every other play. Throws an interception. It's just not good. It's just not good. It's not good. Your boy Fletch, how are you? You just traded Tony Pollard for Xavier Worthy, and you need to choose one running back and two flex. Is this PPR? Are you projected to win or are you projected to lose? And it's between Xavier Worthy, Tucker Kraft, I assume, and your PPR, you're projected to win. You're 6-1. Oh man, this is a tough choice, bro. This is a very tough choice. So where my head's going with this, I think Hez Johnson is probably the most hype name to choose out of these, right? But can still be, you know, a complete miss. But I think he's the most like hyped play from there. Uh, you know, just based off of Tucker Kraft's usage, he's a very interesting play. He probably does not get as many targets, right, as a wide receiver, but in terms of a tight end, he still gets decent usage. The Bucks are playing the Saints, so might have a plus matchup there. You got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are playing the Commanders. A lot of mouths to feed. Just based on that, I think you're the best play would be Tej Johnson and Tucker Kraft. That's who I think I would play there. However, if you're worried about um, receptions, I could see Worthy potentially getting a bounce back week this week, but I don't think he's necessarily a safe floor. So since they're all just upside plays for me, who do I think has the best chances of catching touchdowns or production? I would go Kraft and Tej Johnson, but I hope that makes sense. Let me know if that does or does not, your boy. Drop a like if you can, or let me know in the comments if that did not help. John Will says, I know how it works because you follow European football. Newcastle United got taken over 2 years ago, and they are the richest club in the world. But thankfully, we have somewhat of a fluctuating rule and regulations to combat that, outspending everyone else. I also heard that in European football, that like the professional leagues, and I don't know if these are the exact numbers, right? But like, let's say there's 30 teams in the professional league. The bottom 3 teams in the league get kicked down into like the D League, and then the lower league kicks up then the top 3 players. And this is designed to like prevent tanking, as well as like the movement of the teams. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what somebody told me. Super Squash, thoughts on Derrick Henry? You want to trade for him, but you don't know if he's going to lock in. I think he is a decent target. It just depends on like what value you're giving up and what value that person wants, right? Like, I think if you hit that range of like Cam Scatterboot, that might be kind of tough for me. To trade the guys that are doing like that well, it might be kind of hard for me to see. But with Lamar Jackson coming back, you could kind of see the game scripts being fixed a little bit in Derrick Henry's favor, right? You look at the rest of the season schedule. In his championship weeks and playoffs, he is playing the Packers and Ravens. No, not Packers and Ravens. Sorry, Packers and Patriots, who are both very good run defenses, right? So that is something to note, that your playoff championship might be against him. In the season, he does have to play the Browns towards the end of the season, but it's not the worst. But otherwise, you have the Dolphins, Vikings, Jets, and Bengals, and Steelers, who are all probably runnable against, right? So, I think you get about half, good games, and half, maybe dicey games for Derrick Henry. It's just like, what value were you thinking of trading Super Squash for him, right? So like, if I pull up flex players to this point in time, right? If we're looking like, let's say in the Travis Etienne range, which I don't think they would go for, right? Garrett Wilson, somebody who's injured, something like that. Roma Dunze, maybe a boomer bust. I could see making those trades. The people that they probably most likely would want to trade for, in terms of value, right? They'd probably be looking more for a Quinshon Judkins or a Cam Scatterboot or a Javonte Williams or, George Pickens, Emeka Ibuka, right? If I'm holding Derrick Henry, that's probably who I'm thinking that they would be looking for. I don't know, there it comes down to roster build on if that trade value works out or not. So I think my thoughts on Derrick Henry is that it will start to turn around. But you just have to be careful with the rest of the season schedule because he does have some tough defenses, right? I mentioned he has to play Cleveland, he has to play New England, and he has to play Green Bay, who are all very good run defenses. So it's kind of up to you on if you think that those other games are worth it and who are you giving up in order to do that. I hope that makes sense, Super Squash, but let me know. If not, drop a like if you can, or any more comments or questions. Yeah, it happens. It's a complicated relationship in England, which goes back decades and ultimately made the English Premier League the most profitable league in the world. Oh, really? Very, very interesting. So, yeah. So they do have the spending restrictions as well as like you can't tank type of thing, right? So I do get that. I do get that. Man, you follow like every sport, dude. Do you play any or do you just watch them all? All right. This is probably going to be the last drive watched. Went a little bit longer today than thought for. We shall see the drive of what's it called? Vikings here. The Chargers did what they came here to do. They did extremely well to control this game from top to bottom. They just did it. They did it. The Chargers came out here and took care of business. Took care of business today. So we'll just see if we can get some garbage time points to salvage a terrible decision this week. But we accept our loss. We accept our loss of a bad choice this week. You can't tank, but there are owners like any other sports who don't care about fans and they just stay in the middle, not spending anything on transfers. Okay. And then profiting from it. Interesting. Very interesting. All right, so 7 minutes left. Kickoff is happening, and here comes the Vikings taking the knee in the end zone. You're still looking to the Henry trade, but you're also looking if you trade Puka and Kenneth Walker for Judkins and Rome. I don't like that. Okay, let's take a step back. By you asking this many running back questions, I assume you are weak at running back. So the reason I asked this, right, is like what's your record and what's your goal in the trade? There was a very good quote that I heard that if you're like 7-0, 6-1, and maybe even 5-2, don't force a trade unless it's really going to benefit you. But if you're like, 2-5 on the verge of missing playoffs, then forcing trades makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have to make playoffs. And so when you're making these trades, like I'm trying to figure out like what are you looking for? Like, oh, I'm typically losing every week because I'm rotating my second running back between Kenneth Walker and Travion Henderson, and I'm looking for a running back, right? So your weak at running back is Hampton's gone. Oh, okay. And you're starting Genty and Che 9. Okay, yeah. Okay. So since you're 4-3, right, making a trade makes a lot of sense. You're strong at wide receiver with Brian Thomas Jr., London, and Puka. Okay. So yeah. So now you definitely can look at that a package like that. Um, you know, I think I have Judkins, right? So I think Judkins has major value. Um, the problem if you play with what you'd be playing, right? And the situation they're in can make sense, right? Genty and Judkins are in the exact same situation for their offense where they're the most well debatable with Brock Bowers, right? But they're arguably the by far the best asset on their offensive team, so they should get a high percentage of usage, but their offense sucks, right? And because they're in the running back position, when your offense sucks, it's easy for you to have dud games where the game script just doesn't work your way. So um I think Puka's value is too much there, where Rome's and Judkins' value is too shaky for me to like love that trade, right? In a sense, right? Like Judkins has high upside, but because he's on a uh sketchy offense, he also has no floor. And the same thing can be said about Genty, right? So when you're stacking these two running backs together, like it'd be very sketchy to have two running backs with boom or bust potential, because your running backs are supposed to be kind of like your anchors of your roster in a sense almost, right? So I like what you're trying to do. I just don't know if that's the perfect trade for this situation, right? Versus like if in a vacuum you could alternate, because I know probably in people's minds they're about the same value, but like Judkins versus Cam Scadaboo, right? Um, where you see, even though the Giants offense isn't the best, his role, because Cam Scadaboo gets passing work, his floor is a little more safer than Judkins. So when I be looking for running backs in your specific situation, I'd be looking for running backs with a little more, like if all you can get is Judkins, then sure, like why not if you're absolutely weak at running back, right? But what I'd be looking at, let's see, if I pull up the season, right? In that Judkins range, like even DeAndre Swift, right? Um, DeAndre Swift would be a little interesting to me. You know, I don't know if somebody could get rid of Saquon. He might be interesting, but he's in that same kind of category as Quinshawn. But Philly's offense is a little better than Cleveland's, right? So you can kind of assume a little better usage there. Maybe Bucky Irving, because he's hurt, right? Somebody might be willing to let go of him. Maybe you don't need to give up Puka for this, but you could get away with BTJ or something for like a Jalen Warren, right? Somebody who has a bit safer of a floor. I'm not saying don't take this Judkins trade, but you're giving up Puka, who's like arguably the best wide receiver, arguably the best player, regardless of position, right? How he was this year. So you should get back something in return. Like if I'm giving up Puka, I'd be looking for how like Josh Jacobs, right, or somebody in that category for giving up somebody that valuable. So that's how I feel about this one. I think you're giving up too much for that Judkins and Rome trade. Um, and I would be looking for the running backs who have a little bit, you know, like Judkins has a really good schedule, so like that could play into your favor. But since you're giving up essentially who was the wide receiver one, right? And if you're not gonna get somebody like Josh Jacobs, you're kind of giving up a lot for that value. Hope that makes sense. Appreciate everybody staying with it today for the absolute worst decision I've made so far this year. I'm getting that was a terrible decision. But Jordan Mason completely played awful. Completely played awful. But any last questions? Drop them in chat. Any last questions or comments? Congrats to Genwill and the Chargers for absolutely sweeping and destroying the Vikings here. Second and 9, basically on the red zone. You're welcome, Super Squash. Let me know if you find any other trades or things that could be a value or options. I'll stay on for another minute or so, but hopefully that helps you get to a better record. Yo, Anton, how are you? Should you trade Javonte Williams, Drake London, and Tucker Kraft? Ooh, I can't wait to see what the second half of this message says, because that is already massive value there. So you should be getting some massive value on the other end of this. Anton says, should he trade these people? Who are we trading these people for, Anton? Who are we trading these people for? Oh. Oh. Okay. Should you trade Javonte Williams for Drake London and Tucker Kraft? Okay. Well, I guess it's like, what is the goal of this, right? Like, give me a little bit more breakdown of the background of your team, because like if you don't have any wide receivers or a tight end, and like Javonte Williams is sitting on your bench, that's an automatic for me, you know? But like, to me, what kind of matters is what's the rest of the dynamic of your team. Like, you know, is this PPR? Is your record 5-2, 7-0, 1-6, right? And then like, what's the makeup of your team? Because in a situation, if you were like, you know, starting like, you know, streaming tight ends and, you know, like Kayshon Boutte or Kendrick Bourne or somebody in the wide receiver position, right? Like, I'm trying to make sure I understand your makeup to see if this is going to help you or not. In a complete vacuum of like just on pure number value, yeah, sure. This looks like a good trade, but we kind of need to not only say like, is this, does this make change for $1, but like, does it make sense for you to hold the 4 quarters rather than the dollar bill, right? So you had Malik, Kittle, Tyreek Hill, and you traded Kittle for Javonte. Your record's 2-5. It's PPR. It's a 12 team. Yeah. So like, I don't know if like, I guess the information I need is like, I don't know if you were starting Javonte. Like, I need to see what your running backs and your wide receivers and your tight end on your roster are right now to know like what you're giving up and the plus and minus. And so I'll start giving details of this while you type this out or look for it, right? When I look at a trade, right, in terms of if I'm gonna make the playoffs, I'm looking at rest of season schedule and my chances of making playoffs or strength of schedule of playoffs. In your case, you are 2-5, right? So you're in a losing record and you need to make a trade in order to make the playoffs. So then what I'm doing, what I'm doing then is doing the plus and minus of the positions. Super Squash. Yes, I talked Lamar update. Basically, what I was saying is if you have players on Chicago or Baltimore, you're going to want to look at Lamar's health before the game because him playing versus him not playing is going to drastically switch the value of the guys of like Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, Zay Flowers, right? If Lamar's healthy or not healthy. So basically what I'm saying is if he's healthy, it's going to be, to me, it's going to be a shootout and play everybody. But if he's not healthy, then you have to approach people with more caution. Okay, so Anto says your squad is Saquon, Javonte, Chase Brown, Bam Knight, and your wide receivers is DK Metcalf, is just as in Justin Jefferson, JJ. And your tight end is Kyle Pitts. Okay, so all right, so how we have to look at this trade, oh man, there's gonna be a lot of moving pieces in this, is DK and Io Manor from the Titans. Oh shoot. Okay, that might actually Yeah. Okay, so I see what you're trying to do, but I think you're gonna hurt yourself too much at you might hurt yourself too much at running back if you give up Javonte, right? So what I'm thinking is if you give up Javonte, right? Now you're playing Chase Brown and Bam Knight, right? And Bam Knight is on the timeline, right? Trey Benson's gonna come back eventually. Saquon, you have Saquon too, right? So okay, so you could play Saquon and Chase Brown, who are not high upside at all. Running backs. Okay. Okay. All right. So if I were to analyze just your trade, right? I think you do come out positive. And how I look at the trade is like, all right, Javonte Williams, if you're not playing him, you're playing Chase Brown, right? And let's say the difference in that is like -6 points, right? You could look in your league on a projected week to week on what the difference between Javonte and Chase Brown is. But just for easy numbers, let's say it's like 6 points that you lose playing Chase Brown over Javonte, right? Instead of Io Manor, you're playing Drake London. So you probably gain those 6 points back right there. Maybe even plus some, but roughly, right? And then you upgrade to Tucker Kraft instead of Kyle Pitts. So you get a couple points there. So overall, it's technically a winning trade, right? Because if you're like losing 6 points in this position, but then you're gaining, 9 points in this other, it's a gain of 3 overall. So technically, it's a win, right? Technically, because you lost 6 points with Javonte versus Chase Brown, but then you're gaining more than that by Drake London over A.O. Manor and Tucker Kraft over Kyle Pitts. My only thought is, so, I think that's a win, right? I think it's a win in terms of value. I would just push back to say, like, is there a way of, let's say, flipping one of the running backs, either Saquon, Javonte, or Chase Brown, for I really don't want to do Javonte, right? Like, is there a way to do here? Let me pull up some names, but like, is there a way to do like a Chase Brown for a Tetaroa McMillan, right? Or somebody who's not necessarily as high, but you don't have to give up essentially your best player right now, right? Essentially your best player. So it sounds like your league is tight, right? It sounds like your league is pretty skimpy. So let's see. Yeah, like, Jalen Waddle, Tedero McMillan, Wandale Robinson, Stephon Diggs, some of these guys, Jordan Addison. Like, I don't know if there's a way to flip Chase Brown to get somebody like that. But I would kind of look at a wide receiver 2 rather than targeting the London for that. So your league is 1 flex. Super Squash, I'll get right back to you. J-Val has a good floor, but bye. Thanks for the advice. You've raised perspective. The guys doesn't want Saquon. Smart. Oh, Tet for Chase? Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. Hopefully that helped you, Anton. Yeah, if you could drop a like, much appreciated. But sounds like that kind of got your brain thinking. Yeah, I would look at trying to move, a wide receiver 2 your running back like Chase Brown for a lower wide receiver. Because Javonte's your best player. It's kind of hard for me to say to give that up and then rely on Saquon plus Chase Brown. So all love, much appreciated, brother. Much appreciated. Appreciate every like you guys can drop. All right. Super Squash says you got a problem with bye weeks. Pick 2: Theo, Johnston, Ertz, Franklin, and Noel. Man, that is a terrible selection. That is a terrible selection. I think I'm going Theo, Johnston, and Franklin from that. At this depth, I'm just kind of, taking guesses on gut feel with that. There wasn't much logic to that. So if I try to put some logic into this, let's see. Giants playing Eagles. Theo Johnston, he might be able to get some targets. I don't know if he has a high upside. Ertz has not played well with Marcus Mariota. It's still possible for him to catch a touchdown or something, but he in his 2 games with Mariota, nothing went well. Relying on the Texans sounds like a recipe for disaster. Um, the Broncos are playing the Cowboys, so they probably have the most upside. So I think, with all these guys being dart throws, Franklin sounds the most appealing to me, just in the sense of his matchup having the best chance, right, of hitting. And I think Noel is the lowest for me, and then I would flip a coin for uh Theo Johnson and Ertz, but I lean Theo just for game script. I know it's probably enticing to choose Jalen Noel with Nico Collins potentially sidelined, but it's not like Nico Collins has, showed that their offense has all this opportunity and stuff with the current state of their offense. So I don't necessarily think he's like, a lock to do anything. Noel. So Franklin and Theo for me, super squash, but it's a coin flip, honestly. If you like somebody else because of the matchup, I didn't look into the matchups or nothing. I would do that, but for me, it's Franklin and Theo. Gary started Gadsden. What a great day! Let's go. Great job, Gary. Good job. George says, "How am I?" Trade question. Non-PPR. Okay, so standard, and you're 6-1. Someone offered you T. Higgins and Bijan for Pickens and CMC. Oh, man. I don't like it. I don't like it. Thanks, Super Squash. Appreciate it. Appreciate you tuning in. I hope to see you Sunday. I'm going to answer George's question and probably head to bed too. So I don't like it. And I guess here's why, right? I think I'd rather have Pickens and CMC in this. I mean, we can't bring, like, the only excuse for CMC right now is injury, right? On why people don't want him. But like, we're this far into the season. I would not be considering that as, a reason to do something or not. So Bijan and CMC are in like the exact same category, right? The best of the best, top 3. It's just who would you prefer to have? And for me, when I could just compare these two, you're comparing the slimmest margin of advantage between these two, right? But just in terms of the offenses, I think there's more reason to assume that San Francisco is going to score more points than the Falcons, and they're going to need CMC more to score those points, or they're going to use him. And then I think the same exact thing for Dallas versus Cincinnati, right? Where both Pickens and T. Higgins are the number 2 on their option, right? So it's not like you're picking a number 2 versus a number 1. You're picking both number 2s. And while I do believe that, these guys are of the same caliber player, I think Dak and the Dallas offense and how bad their defense is runs more game scripts for me to say that there's more likelihood that Pickens is going to catch the touchdowns or have that upside, right? You're in a non-PPR, so it's all about touchdowns, right? So when I'm making this choice, it's like, who has the best rest of season schedule? I did not look into this, so that can play a factor. But just by like touchdown potentials of the teams, I lean the CMC and Pickens side. Also, since you're 6-1, right, I would really push back on trades to say, unless this is a complete consolidation and something that makes absolute crystal clear sense, I would not do it, right? If I'm trading my starting players and it's like I don't know, I wouldn't do it, right? But if like there's two players sitting on my bench doing absolutely nothing, and then I could consolidate them into one player who could then potentially go into my lineup, right? Or if I have a wide receiver 2 and somebody on my bench and I'm consolidating those two people into a Sherlock wide receiver, right? I'm making those trades. But like in this case where it's like Bijan versus CMC, you're taking you're taking two variables on your team that were already working for you to get you to 6-1 for people that you're trying to justify valuing at the same, and at a coin flip like this, unless the schedules or the offenses themselves highly outweigh it, it's like, why change what worked, right? The only reasons being is if the offenses are going to be much, much better, right, for your players or the game scripts. And I don't necessarily know if that's true for those situations. So your team is Jaden Daniels, CMC. Dude, your team is fantastic. CMC, I would assume when you say Taylor, that's Jonathan Taylor. Pickens, Ladd, Kelsey. Your flex is Woody. Your bench is Harvey, Henderson, Worthy, and Golden. Yeah, so like in this situation, you're flipping CMC for Bijan, right? And then you're flipping Pickens for T. Higgins. So it's not like T. Higgins gives you any more solid of a floor than Pickens, and it's not like Pickens doesn't have upside, right? So it's like, to me, it's like swapping the same. So you're just looking at strength of schedule and the offense, right? And the same thing for CMC and Bijan. Their upsides and their floors are like the exact same. So to me, this all comes down to who do you think is going to have more touchdowns for the rest of the season for these offenses, and how does the defenses look that you're matched up against? I hope that makes sense. Let me know. If not, appreciate everybody's questions. I'm going to be signing off soon. Appreciate all questions. Hope everyone has a good week. 8. See y'all Sunday morning. You're all clear? Awesome. Appreciate you. Hope to see you all Sunday. Have a good Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy week 8. I will see y'all soon.